We're happy to see everybody here, although it seems like I saw you all just yesterday at the session. It feels like that. We'll start off with a roll call.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This is roll call for Thursday, May 8th, 2025. Senator Boner,
Excused, he's in another meeting.
Senator Dockstetter.
Here.
Senator Landon.
Here.
Senator Steinmetz.
Here.
She's present online.
Representative Brown.
Here.
Representative Heft.
Here.
Representative Johnson.
Here.
Representative Locke.
Present.
Representative Lucas.
Present.
Representative Webb. Representative Weber.
Here.
Representative Yin.
Here.
Co-Chairman Knapp.
Here.
Chairman Case.
Present. Thank you very much, Katie. Appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, want to have a couple of housekeeping things. If you're an attendee, would you please sign in so that we can get all your name right for the minutes and everything? We're glad to see you here. The next would be adoption of the interim committee rules, and look for a positive motion on that. The standard rules are in your legislative packet. Traditionally, this committee has adopted the standard rule. We have operated, Mr. Chairman, as kind of co-chairman rather than chairman, vice chairman, and that seems to have worked well. And with that caveat, we will actually probably won't be appointing a vice chairman unless somebody wants to pursue that. So any additions to the rules, any proposed changes, anything you'd like? Okay, motion by Dockstader, second by Landon. Any discussion? All those in favor of the rules, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rules have been passed. We're underway. The ship is kind of going out. The first item for our agenda, and just to talk in general about the interim, as you all know, we had 34 pages of interim topic proposals, and Mr. Co-Chairman and I did our very best to try to get those ranked in a fashion and amalgamated so that we had broader topics that would encompass more things as we go forward. The elections was one of the very top issues, and although we didn't go down the specifics of each and every election topic, whether it's paper ballots, whether it's election machines, we're going to let the committee kind of help us sort that out, and that's kind of our purpose today. Today we welcome the Wyoming County clerks. There are colleagues in being elected. They represent each and every county. And in fact, if it's a large county like Fremont, Ms. Freese there pulls more votes every time that she's elected than I'll ever get in my life, I think. So, and I think that's true for a lot of you. The county clerks are elected countywide, and we have our districts. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Julie Freese or Mr. Malcolm Irwin to start us off, and they have some information for you today. Welcome. Welcome, county clerks.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Joint Corporations Elections Political Subdivisions Committee, my name is Malcolm Irvin. I was elected as the county clerk of Platte County in 2018, and I'm happy to be serving my second term in that role. As you well know, being an elected representative is a humbling experience and an endeavor where you quickly realize that if your goal is to please everybody, you will fall far short. Instead, what you have to do is make the best decision you can with the information you have. That is why we are here today. We have no intention of swaying your opinions about electronic voting systems or to sell you on anything. Instead, we just want to provide information about what we are doing to allow you further context when you make decisions regarding those systems. Again, our goal is not to lobby you, but our goal is to provide information. In the 2025 session, Representative Locke asked many times about our testing and auditing procedures. We heard those questions, and we want to make sure you walk away with your questions answered. Included in your meeting materials was a survey conducted by the University of Wyoming. That survey said 88.2% of respondents believed votes cast for president in 2024 would be counted reliably across Wyoming. More specifically, the survey showed 89% of respondents believed votes cast for president in 2024 would be counted reliably within their county. This survey shows that confidence in election grows when administrators of that election are close to home. Mr. Chairman, we appreciate your invitation to present today. The request of this committee was that we provide a, quote, overview and demonstration of an election. We appreciate that opportunity, but I will confess that an hour and a half will not be sufficient time to cover each topic in depth. Instead, we will primarily focus on our role as clerks, the election timeline in general, and take a deeper dive on testing and auditing. To give perspective, just Tuesday, my office administered a bond election in which 152 qualified electors cast their ballot. Regardless of the size of the election, it was the culmination of 101 days' work. My point is this: administering elections is a big job, one that continues to grow after each legislative session. County clerks, more than anyone, are committed to ensuring that eligible voters cast their ballot and that each vote cast is counted accurately. We are the one, quite frankly, whose butts are on the line if the laws you pass do not work. That is why we testify on the administrative aspects of each proposed piece of legislation. Today, we intend to provide you with as much information as we can in our allotted time, but please do not believe that a successful election can be minimized to an hour-and-a-half demonstration. In light of knowing our time with you is limited, we know it is unlikely we will be able to field all of your questions. As such, we have prepared a form, which Clerk Rimmer will pass that to you now. That form allows you to document your question. We are dedicated to following up with you should we not be able to answer your questions satisfactorily today. We are earnest in our desire to answer your questions, but to do so, we must know your questions. Mr. Chairman, before we move on to the meat and potatoes of this presentation, I just want to remind you that county clerks requested 4 election-related items to be considered during the interim. Despite misinformation online, county clerks did follow the required procedure to submit those interim topics. Those topics were 1, testing and auditing procedures; 2, voter list maintenance; 3, physical election security; and 4, absentee ballot security. Later this interim, we will be happy to present our suggestions for those areas of the election code. But our purpose today is not to suggest any language or change any statutes. We will do that later. Today, our goal is to be a resource for you. As such, it is my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Amanda Hutchinson, the duly elected County Clerk of Uinta County.
Ms. Hutchison, go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee. Thanks for providing us time today. We really appreciate it. My name is Amanda Hutchinson. I am the Uinta County Clerk. I have been working elections since 2009 when I became the appointed deputy clerk in Uinta County. And then I've been the county clerk since 2017 and continue to, of course, work elections. Each county clerk is a duly elected official tasked with a multitude of statutory duties. One of our most prevalent roles is that of chief election officer for our counties. Today, you will hear from some of the other county clerks in more depth about the election duties. I hope through my testimony today to also provide a very brief insight into the additional duties required of county clerks. I hope this insight will help to clarify future testimony from the clerks. We often weigh in on whether or not a bill can or cannot be administered. And some of that consideration goes into these other duties that are often occurring at the same time as elections. So some of those additional duties are issuing vehicle titles. Many of you have probably been to your clerk's offices to get a title and may or may not have waited in a line, hopefully a short one. But that is probably the most common interaction the public has with us on a day-to-day basis. We also issue marriage licenses. We record and abstract all land records, mortgages, deeds, and those things have to be recorded immediately and in the order that they come in. You can't save that work for another day. We are clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. This requires attendance at all of the county commission meetings, which is at least 2 days a month and more in many cases. We're responsible for keeping a record of all the commission meetings. In smaller counties where county administrators and administrative assistants cannot be afforded, county clerks are often required to fill in some or all of those responsibilities. We are clerks to the Board of Equalization. This requires record keeping, scheduling, attendance, and having some knowledge that's kind of outside our normal scope with legal proceedings. Many of us are our public records point person. That can vary in duties from county to county on the size of the county and how many records that they get. We oversee the process of liquor license applications through the commissioners and getting approval. We are the chief budget officers for our counties. This is a big one. The budgeting is a 2 to 3 month process, primarily taking place between May and July, which is also when we're prepping for our primary elections on election years. We do payroll, accounts payable. We oversee the auditing process for our counties, not just for our offices, but for the entire county. With budget constraints, many county clerks are also tasked with human resources obligations, grants administration, and many other duties needed to keep the counties running and within budget. The Niobrara County Clerk, for example, has a staff of 2, and she still has to do all of these duties and follow every single statute. This is just a brief summary that we hope will provide some insight for our future testimony as to how we are able to administer new laws within our budgeted resources. My colleagues and I are honored to have been elected to serve our counties and accomplishing our responsibilities. And we look forward to continuing to provide helpful input and insight into all of our different duties. And with that, I will turn the time to the Honorable Lisa Smith, the Carbon County Clerk.
Thank you, Clerk Hutchison.
Thank you.
Clerk Smith, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Lisa Smith, Carbon County Clerk. I have only been county clerk since January 21 of this year. Prior to my appointment, I have been conducting Carbon County's election for more than 20 years. And I'm here today to give a timing overview of a typical election with a primary and general only. So beginning in April, clerks notify party chairs of the number of election judges needed, followed by the Secretary of State certifying offices up for election. Going into May, election districts are established at the first commissioner meeting in May, followed by the primary proclamation being published. And then there's the cutoff for party changes and withdrawal of voter registration prior to candidate filing. Then candidate filing runs mid-May through the end of May. Clerks are also doing voter education due to any legislative changes. That's all going on during that time. And also during the month of May, clerks, being the chief budget officers, we're receiving those proposed departmental budgets and are required to provide the commissioners with a tentative budget by May 15th. So all of that is going on at the same time. Going into June, the Secretary of State and municipalities certify candidates. Ballots are prepped and proofed for accuracy, and this includes maybe sending those proofs to a buddy county for review, or for those counties who have municipal races, they are proofing their portion of the ballot for accuracy, and then those ballots are sent on to the printer. Election judges are appointed June 30th. And then during June, many clerks are also conducting those special budget meetings, doing commissioner work to balance the budget. And then all proposed special budgets, special district budgets are due by June 1st. Going into July, ballots are received back from the printer, sample ballots are posted, the public logic and accuracy testing of ballots and machines is conducted. The UOCAVA military and overseas ballots are going out 45 days prior to election day, followed by all other absentees going out 28 days prior to election day. And then just to note, the timing between preparing ballots, sending them to the printer, receiving them back from the printer, doing the LNA testing, and sending out absentee ballots all occurs within a 3 to 4 week window before the primary. And then also during that same time, we are doing a public hearing to adopt the county's budget. Going into August, the sample ballot ad is published. The general election proclamation is being published. General election candidate filing for school board and special districts begins early August and runs through the end of the month. And then clerks are preparing the primary poll list, conducting election judge and counting board training. We're receiving and uploading campaign finance reports, and we're making all the final preparations to deploy equipment and supplies to the polls for primary election day. So then primary election day comes along on the Tuesday following the third Monday in August. And that week following, or the days following that week, during that week, we are compiling write-in votes, reviewing poll books, conducting any automatic recounts. We are conducting the post-election ballot audit and then the county canvassing meeting. And then upon conclusion of that canvassing meeting, official results are transmitted to the Secretary of State. Anyone nominated by write-ins are sent notification within 48 hours. Certificates of nomination, and in the case of precinct committee people, certificates of election, those are issued, and then the clerks have a 30-day window following to enter all election day registration forms and conduct a post-election audit of equipment. That's the primary. And then going into September, it starts all over. So September, the Secretary of State certifies those general election candidates. Ballots are prepped and proofed and sent to the printer. And in that case, there's only about a 2-week turnaround to send the ballots to the printer and then get them back so that we can test them, start sending out absentees. That's an even shorter window. Goodness, what else are we doing? I've lost my train. We're still doing LNA testing. We're still posting sample ballots. Again, UOCAVA ballots go out 45 days ahead, regular absentee ballots, the 28-day window. And then we're getting into the October-November crunch. The sample ballot ad is posted within the 2 weeks before that election. We're still preparing poll books, doing election judge training, receiving campaign finance reports, and making all those same final preparations to deploy equipment and supplies for the general election. And then that'll occur the Tuesday following the first Monday in November. And then we have those same tasks following election day with compiling write-ins, doing any recounts, reviewing the poll books, doing the post-election ballot audit and the canvassing. And then upon conclusion of that canvassing meeting, we're sending official results transmitted securely to the Secretary of State, issuing certificates of election. We have a 30-day window following that to enter those election day registrations and conduct that post-election audit of that election equipment. And then after all election day registrations statewide are entered within that 30-day period, the Secretary of State gives us the go-ahead that that task has been completed, and we send out notification to all registered voters who fail to vote in the general election, and those who don't respond, requesting to stay registered to vote are purged from the voter rolls by February 15th. So this timeline, even though I just whizzed through it and gave you a general overview, it details just a portion of those election tasks required without getting into the details of each of those processes. Clerks have mastered the art of organization and timing with election processes, and these are very intricate, and even more so when intermingled with all the other statutory requirements of the office. We are proud of our ability to meet these concurrent deadlines while executing these complex tasks and doing so in accordance with state statute. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would turn it over to the Honorable Fremont. I almost said Hardin County. How about Fremont County Clerk Julie Freeze?
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Appreciate it. And we know Ms. Freeze here. So Julie, did you go to school in this school, or you were in Mill Creek at the time, right?
Mr. Chairman, I was born and raised on the reservation and so went to what is now the Wyoming Indian High School up through 8th grade and went to Lander Valley High School, graduating from here.
Yeah, but you didn't, so you weren't here for.
I did not go to this school.
You didn't have the opportunity to have lunch in this room and have band practice in this room. So Julie was in band. She was a fabulous clarinet player. And that's her qualifications.
That's a qualification for a clerk, obviously.
Welcome, Julie.
Yeah, I did
Welcome, Clerk
I did
Freeze.
set up
Welcome.
student council elections in Wyoming Indian High School as the first time thing, not knowing that my life's work might be an election. So my name is Julie Freeze. I am the Fremont County Clerk. I have been a county clerk for 30 years. and I have been running elections in Fremont County for 45 years. With me today, I have Chief Deputy Margie Irvine and Election Deputy Sarah McQuain, and combined, we have 103 years of expertise and experience in elections. Anybody that knows Fremont County, I do want to say, we are not ones to just sit around and say, okay, we'll do it the same way every year. We do like to look at what's new and maybe something, maybe not new and it's great, but what can we do better? And so I just want to tell you that I think a lot of our county clerks are that way as well. We are here to give a demonstration of the logic and accuracy testing of voting machines, allow you as the committee to vote, and to do a post-election audit showing how the machine counted your ballots. As we go through this, most of what you see is the uniform way the county clerks do their testing. We did start a uniformity process for testing, which we're going to continue later this month. More of that. Because there are differences in voting in counties, I might be doing something a little bit different than maybe what you've seen in other counties. Please do not beat them up for that, because all of us have a little bit different setup, but for the most part, this will be uniform. LNA tests are performed prior to each election and use the actual data and ballots for a specific election to ensure they are programmed correctly, and after elections to prove nothing has been changed. Counties conduct an internal LNA prior to their public test of voting equipment to ensure three main objectives. Number one, verify that election-specific data and ballots include every contest, candidate, and precinct. Number two, ensure all components of the voting system are functional. Number three, verify the voting system can interpret voter markings and record and report vote totals accurately. Public demonstrations are usually the culmination of the testing process. Today, we are testing our May 9th, 2025 election for the Baldwin Creek Elementary election for fifth graders. We will be going to their school tomorrow. This is an actual election for them. And tell me, you might be a tough crowd, but that's the toughest crowd you'll ever find is a group of fifth graders. You'll get every question under the sun. They are pretty amazing. Every time we move our equipment from their secure site, which we have done, we bring the chain of custody to the log book so we can log every step of where the machine goes and who had possession on its journey. So even though we're doing a school election, we treat it just like a regular election. Our test deck for the general, just so you know, in Fremont County was 1,185 ballots, and I believe that was the most in the state. Today, with a much smaller ballot and a smaller and just one precinct, we have 23 ballots to test. Our DS200 voting tabulator shown here is like you would see during a public test. And I want to say, first of all, I apologize to the audience. We are doing the demo for you. There is no way to hook any of this stuff up to anything. This is our results computer here. It is hardened. It is not hooked to the internet ever. And so I don't even want to hook it up to a monitor. So I apologize that you can't see it out there or this, but again, this is for you. Since there's a large number of machines in some counties, this just helps speed up the process to have your machines ready like this. And we want to make sure we don't miss any of the steps of the process. You will be either in a warehouse or in a room used for this purpose. As you can see, the machine is open and ready to go. The tape that is hanging from the machine is the zero tape. The party representatives would see this tape and be asked to review the tape for the election date, the precinct, and that all candidates and propositions are at zero. And they will also check the public counter on the machine to make sure it is at zero. The LNA should test the full range of ballot types available. Those received from the printer, the express vote marking device, and the ballot on demand printer, which is usually used for early voting situations. At our school election, we will be using the printed ballots and express vote marking device, and those are the ballots we will test today. We will first make sure that the auxiliary bin and the ballot bins are empty, and we will open the lids of the inner ballot box. The auxiliary bin, while she's doing that, is if something happens that you don't have electricity to your machine, you have the power go out, and you can't use the machine for some reason, the batteries are defunct also, they've maybe gone through 4 or 6 hours and they are no longer working, you would have your voters put it in the auxiliary bin until you get your power back. Now, using the best practices of the County Clerks Association and ESNS and directives from the Secretary of State on testing processes in the Wyoming statutes, the tests we will perform are making sure all candidates and ballot propositions have a different number of votes than each other in that office or question, which also includes write-in votes. Make sure an overvoted ballot will return to the voters stating which race they overvoted on and give them the opportunity to remake the ballot. For testing, we will cast the ballot, which is a place on there where you can cast it, so that we know the coding will show an overvoted ballot. We want to make sure that is shown.
Would you define overvote?
So you voted for more than one. So if it's a vote for one, you voted for more than what you were allowed. Make sure that a blank ballot will return to the voter to mark correctly. And sometimes people actually don't read directions, amazingly, but they will mark something off to the side. It goes through the machine because it has to read the bubbles. That's where the machine reads. So if it can't read the bubbles, then it shows it as blank. So it might come back out and they say, yes, I did mark it. Then we could say, did you complete the bubbles? They did not. They could actually use that one and finish that one and send it through. Otherwise, for the other one, the overvote, they would have to get another ballot and we would void that first one. So again, we're going to mark or hit the button for cast to show that an undervote will be for all races and propositions in that manner. We also want to make sure that a write-in vote gets the vote to their proper write-in area. We want to make sure that 2 ballots will not go through the machine. And you can hear there is one beeping. I told Chris there wasn't. Chris, there is. One beeping here that tells them that you cannot put 2 ballots in at the same time. You have to make sure that the regular paper ballots will go into the machine in all 4 directions. Sarah will finish running through these ballots while we're here. And also, just so you know, our representatives, I know in our county and a lot of the other counties, if you have representatives there, we give them a machine and say, help us out to do that. It's really good because they get the experience of doing that as well. While she's testing this, Margie will mark on the express marking device. This is not a counter. It's a very expensive pencil. So what this is she's going to make sure 2 express ballots will not go through the machine. Oh, and keep in mind, Wyoming Statute 2211-104 is silent on testing express vote marking devices. However, we're going to do these testing that we do in our offices. So we make sure 2 won't go through the machine. We want to make sure when she does put a ballot in there that the earphones work. And is it reading what is on the ballot face? We actually have to listen to every single candidate, every single precinct, everything that's on your ballot. We have to test that. And so when we ask you, when you sign up and they say, what's your phonetic name? We have to use that and hope it sounds like your name. So each one of us have to do that individually. Does the keypad work by moving the up and down arrows as they are designed for?
And Ms. Freese,
Yes.
we should just mention that this isn't the normal vote that people use. This is for Fremont County. This is used for handicapped people that can't do a paper ballot, but it produces a paper ballot.
Right.
In Laramie County, they use this machine or something similar exclusively, correct?
For that, this is how they vote, is on
Yeah.
this machine. And I will say, we have vote centers here. So I don't right now send ballots to every single precinct. I figure who might go to the vote center in their area and we send paper ballots there. But if you were, I had one guy from Lander was going through Du Bois. I'm not going to make it back to Lander. Fine, you can stop in Du Bois, but I don't have a Lander ballot in Du Bois. So he had to vote on an express vote as well. So that's why we use them as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Does the recap part of the marking device show that all races and propositions are voted as the voter wished? If there is a mistake, can the voter change their mind to a different answer? We ask that you print the ballot out and check the answers on the actual ballot. And then put it back in the machine and make sure it still answers the way you wanted your ballot to read. It will not allow you to continue to vote on this, obviously, because it already printed, but you can see your choices again to make sure that that was your choices. Testing of the express votes is done by county clerks and/or staff, and that part of the public would see that as an express vote ballot for each ballot style inserted into the test deck. That's generally how you would see it. Those ballots are placed into the main test deck, and again, we want to make sure that two won't go through at the same time. Number two, we want to make sure that they go into the machine in different directions. At the end of testing, the polls are now closed, and the staff will close that machine down. The tape will run showing the results for that machine. While waiting for this report to finish, the county clerk and/or staff will assist and take all ballots out of the bottom bin of the machine and place them in the envelope. They will check that the public counter number is the same number on the testing envelope or other checkoff sheet that a clerk may have for that machine. Okay. Your envelope behind you.
Make sure it's empty.
As you see, those ballots do not neatly stack in there. So it's when people say, how can you tell, maybe if I was the fourth voter, could you tell which one my ballot is? No, because they seriously do this. They look like snakes in there. Okay. After the tape is done printing, the machine is turned off and unplugged. The USB is removed from the machine, and the entire tape is now taken off of the machine and signed by the county clerk representative and the party representatives, and they are dated. So again, that is a 0 tape and the results on there that you're seeing. So we're keeping that as proof of the testing of that machine. Okay. So you're going to put put that tape into the envelope as well. The USB stick now goes to the electionware reporting module, which is where Margie is right now. All USB sticks will be uploaded into the hardened electionware computer and results will be printed out. We did not bring our printer today. We do have some results copied for you. If you would like those, I'd give them to your staff and they can give them to you later. The representatives will watch and confirm as the county clerk and/or staff reads the expected results to the test deck. So the results here I have, and Margie has the expected results. Favorite school subject, ELA 6, Math 4, Science 3, Social Studies 2, write-in votes 1, overvotes 2, undervotes 5, contest total 23. Favorite pet, cat 8, chicken 7, gerbil 5, horse 4, tarantula 3, write-in 6, overvotes 4, undervotes 9, contest total 46.
No dogs.
No
There's
dogs.
something wrong with this election.
I'll tell you why. Remember the 5th grade thought process, and I'll tell you why. Spring break question, yes 3, no 1, overvotes 2, undervotes 17, contest total 23. You would not believe how many write-ins I get if I give them basic animals. So we try to mess with them a little bit this time to see what we get. Like I said, they're a tough crowd.
Yes.
Okay, if those match, then we will have the representatives also write on the form and sign it. And those are all placed into a secure envelope. Now, like in our testing for our entire election, it's a box. It's like the one that's underneath there. They will be put into envelopes individually by vote center, and they will be sealed, and they'll be sealed in the box and then put in a secure location. And the reason we seal those is we want to guarantee that no one alters the test. No one adds anything. There's no extra ballots, no changes to the ballots from the day of the test till the post-audit. Post-audit, we will use this again within 30 days after the canvass to make sure that everything still works exactly as we had done this test. As provided in the county clerk's best practices and directive from the Secretary of State, the minimum requirement of seals of the machines is followed. The representatives may now assist with the sealing of the rest of the machine, and Margie and Sarah will do this and check the seals for you. We have a seal sheet, and it's different again in every county depending on what makes them feel comfortable for seals. And then we have one seal overall sheet that we keep, and then we have a form that we send to the Secretary of State when we are completed. Go ahead.
You might speak louder.
Lid front? That was 99, sorry about that. And the other one was 43. 92.
Auxiliary?
44? Express vote machine.
What Sarah is doing now is that obviously we would not just allow anybody to come over here and clear votes, right? So you have codes. Those are very carefully given out to just the people who need them. So at the election, most of the head judges are the only ones that gets the code. That is not allowed for everybody to know that, because you do have to override it. And then what we're going to do is clear the votes out of here, because on election day, your election judges have to see what we just did, is that it's 0. So that's what she is doing right now, is getting ready to do that. All counties have a procedure, again, that works best for them in getting this information to the election judges. But basically, again, the seal information is shared with each polling place, as the election judges should make sure the seals are still in place and the numbers are still the same seals. Obviously, if they weren't, that meant possibly somebody had been into the machine. So you want to make sure that is a very important job of the election judges. Chain of custody documents will be filled out by those delivering and those receiving the machine. So at this point, when we seal this here in a minute, it's ready to be sent out to the polls. So each one of us have a chain of custody, like this would stay in our warehouse, but once the maintenance department leaves with our equipment, they will sign off they took it. They go to the school or wherever we go, those people sign off they received it. Each one of us do something different in each one of our polling locations. I use game cams on mine for my own preservation of while they're sitting there before the election. So all of these take a lot of time to reset. So sorry that there's some blanks in here.
Public radio's loving it.
Yeah. He's finally getting I told him there was no sounds anymore, so sorry about that. So as I mentioned before about the seals, there's a lot of places on here you can put seals, but there were our best practices from the Clerks Association, and then the Secretary of State also sent them to us with the same numbers, or where we said, you have to put them in those locations. There are a lot more, and if you want to seal 100, wherever, how many there is on here, you go right ahead and do it. Each one of us do a little bit different with the bottom door. Some people do maybe send their ballots to the polls in that bottom one. You would want to seal that one as well. We do not send ours that way. So we'll tell you how we're going to seal that one a little bit later. So at this time on the tape, the only tape that's left there, it says the totals are cleared. And the public counter says 0. Is that correct, Sarah? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and shut that down when it's ready.
USB seal.
So right now there's an internal seal, which is really hard to put on there. And then there's a seal across that. Again, the USB is where all of your election information is. That's the coding, that's the results. If you take that out, this is like a big garbage can. It has no brain. So now it is ready to go to the polls in this state. So on election day, The election judges arrive, and they will be giving the seal certificate to each machine and the keys. They will follow the opening instructions for the machine. Okay, just ready for the judges to be there? Okay, you'll have to go through the checking in so you can do the zero take. So checking the seals again, they will make sure that they're all correct. Again, each county has their own way to secure, excuse me. We chose bank bags with dual keys, one that is left in our office and one that goes to just the head judge. And those are sent out separately than all the equipment. So the head judge even doesn't have any way to access stuff that has been delivered to the polls because they pick up their information before the election. So they're going to check the seals again to make sure that they are still there and that they are correct. Sometimes in transit, depending on what kind of seals you have, they might be broken. They are to report to the county clerk. We make sure nothing else has changed, that the zeros are still showing up. And then we just mark down that maybe one of the seals maybe wasn't completely attached to still, but is there. That does happen. The zero tape will print automatically once the lid is open. The tape is signed by the election judges and played in the secure bag for return to Election Central. This will confirm that no ballots have been cast through the machine, as we talked about before. It's going to say 0 for the public count. And the tape, again, will have all those zeros. In the meantime, they will check the auxiliary bin again and make sure there are no ballots. And they will check the regular bin and open the internal bin and make sure there are no ballots. This is an important piece when they put that back in there. This bin, the internal bin, will hold 1,000 ballots. So if you see your machine is going to the 1,000 mark, our judges have been instructed how to take the bin out with dual judges and seal them and put them in a secure location and put another bin back in there. In our case, we try to have enough machines that we don't do that, but there is that possibility always to have that happen. They will return that internal bin and make sure the flaps are open, because if you don't, you'll eventually have a jam, because it only is so far down to that bin and it'll just start hitting there. So it's important for judges to do that. Some of the judges could probably attest to that happening to them. They will secure the keys and start voting. So this is what usually in Riverton, we had one judge that usually said that. So I'm going to say this today. Polls are now open. Legislators, it's now your turn. I'm going to come over and I'm going to give you a ballot to vote on today. I asked 2 of you to volunteer to vote on the express, to mark your ballot on the express ballot. So when I come around, tell me which one you want.
You've used them before. We need some of these old handicapped senators and maybe an old handicapped representative.
And Mr. Chairman,
Who's talking? Mr. Irwin. Oh. Okay, we're checking up for ID.
Mr. Chairman, I would encourage if you're filling out the traditional bubble style ballot, if you'll at least on one of those races, select the write-in and then write in. So during the post-election audit portion, we can see or show you how those write-ins should come across.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Webb is very progressive. He's going to try out the machine. Be nice if I had a progressive senator to try out the machine. Senators are not known for being very progressive. So for everybody online, I'm not sure what you can get out of this, but we're going to do a trial election here, and the committee is working, they're receiving their ballots, we're checking their IDs, and we're going to cast an election here. They are real IDs now, at least, and Wyoming has been compliant with real ID for a long time. My name is James Case, precinct 5-1. You want to see it? Can I try the express ballot? Thank you very much. No, we can do more than one. We have time. Try it.
I'll try.
Traditional man, Senator Dockstader, traditional ballot. Don't worry, none of them are. Go ahead, ladies first. I think you're ready. The election process in Fremont County is backed up a little bit, everybody. Mainly because we want to try the express machine, but
So a couple things we want to mention. Sarah has a check-in sheet. We use this in Fremont County. So where you check in and where you get your ballots kind of a walk in most places. And then to the machine is another walk. So we do a check-in, so we make sure nobody has come in with their own ballots or something. So we do that also because we have to balance. And so we're going to do that here for you today. And the reason we have a check-in log is sometimes people get mad and they throw their ballot away or they take it home and we're not balancing. And the judges are like, oh my God, we were fine. Now we're not. I don't know what happened. So the only reason we put your first initial and your last name is that we can go back to the poll book and say, okay, this person was here, this one went through, this one went through, this one went through. Oh, we're missing Senator Landon's. So we can even call you up and say, is everything okay? Yeah, I was mad. I took it home. Forget it. They can make a note that says we balance because we know what happened to that ballot. That's what we try to do because it is hard for election judges to balance otherwise. So while they're doing that as well, so the ballot judges do have a job also that is very important. And they have to count all of the ballots before they get to the, before we start the day. So they're in shrink wrap and there are a certain number in shrink wrap. So while they're in shrink wrap, they could say, I have 300 of this ballot style, I have 200 of this ballot style, and they mark it off in our county on a balance sheet.
It will count all votes except for the one that is.
So for everybody, apparently we tested the overvote and it came back to you and she could change her ballot if she wanted to. We could give her a new ballot. Otherwise, she's going to cast it and it will show an overvote for what she overvoted. So for back here, this is what our balance sheet looks like. We're up here, balance sheet looks like this. So what we had was 20 ballots, regular ballots today. And we had 5 of the express votes.
so we got room at the express machine. Senator Landon, I think you're up.
And Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Irwin.
during the last session, we heard quite a bit of conversation and discussion about the barcodes on the express vote ballot. And so in your meeting materials is a document we requested from ES&S after the session, which shows how that barcode's read and how it corresponds to the bubble ballot. And so I just wanted to draw not only your attention as representatives and senators, but also the public's that's on the meeting material list.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. And you guys are each welcome to keep talking because I know senators are especially slow.
We forgot our I voted stickers. Well, I'm sure they're back in the bag for the school kids, but I could bring them out.
People might wonder about that if we're walking around town with our.
Well, I'm sure they worry about those kids in the fifth
Especially
grade
to
too.
the election committee. I just think that might not go over well.
So what Sarah is reminding is our election judges, and we usually don't let them stand this close, first of all, to the booth or to the machine. But we're reminding you to look at the machine and make sure that the number has changed. So if somebody were not to see that their ballot came back out, because it really isn't very loud when it comes back, we'd hate for you to walk off and miss your opportunity to change your ballot if you wanted to. So let's keep pushing.
So the observation that I have here is that paper ballots, the non-express vote ballots are faster. Is that true everywhere?
I'm sorry.
It looks like it takes more time to vote express vote. Is that true or not? It's just that we're fumbling.
I think it's new and you're interested in how it's working. I mean,
Yeah,
people,
so you, in practice, there's no difference.
yeah. I mean, I think people get used to
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
okay. And Julie, I think, or Ms. Freese, I think it was important the way you pointed out that the express vote machine is just a fancy pencil.
Yes.
All it does is put your choices on a piece of paper that is then read by the same system that reads everybody else's vote that has paper ballots.
Right. And I think you also have a handout about the express vote and the coding and how that is similar to
You guys
the
aren't supposed to
coding on a
look- Hold on,
machine.
Julie, we got some vote violations here. We have a representative looking over the shoulder of a senator. And I think in Wyoming, you're guaranteed privacy to vote. And now representatives are telling the senator how to vote.
I hope this doesn't go
This is just like
nationwide.
Diane, I tell you.
I needed to have the fifth graders here to help you. Has everybody voted except for, oh,
I'm coming.
Senator Case? Okay. I was gonna say I'm off one. I'm panicking already. Well, if you haven't printed it yet, you can fix it. Need to get rid of one. And as I mentioned earlier, when Margie was doing it, you can, so once you print it out, again, you can put it back in and make sure it still has what you expected it to say.
So, well, we got a little bit extra time. Could you maybe talk about what happens in emergency procedures? What happens if the power goes out? What happens if, I don't know, you pick it, you don't have enough help to open it? Tell me about things. What do you do?
That was gonna be for my first answer. So I mentioned a little bit about the power. So there are battery backups to the machines that are about 6 hours. They're rated at like 6 hours, I think it is. They might go a little bit beyond that. So if they do go off, first of all, I have a great emergency management guy, and I hope most of you across the counties have this as well. He set up all my backup generators, and so he was prepared to dispatch people immediately to my centers. But you can use the auxiliary bin that we looked at. It's a small area. It looks like a postal slot, so they can put them in there. They'll check in the same way. And then after you get your power back up and running, then you can put the ballots through the machine. You'd have 2 election judges, preferably of different parties, standing there and running those ballots through. If you don't have enough people, I know we have about 200 election judges, and I absolutely, for the last 4 years, have used almost everybody on my list. So we call and try to get people to go there. We do use county employees in our county. We do have a in-house workday type holiday where we're closed to the public, and I can use county employees. So I could dispatch more county employees to come work. I know the state has, the governor has asked that state employees volunteer their time, and then they won't have to take time off. We've had the luck of having some of those folks too. I have to have by statute at least 3 in every polling place. So 3 judges is the minimum. So hopefully I would never be into that situation, but I'd probably start recruiting people somewhere. I don't know where. Probably get on the radio and say I need help. And in a vote center, I'd have to close down and they'd have to pick another vote center. We've also had, well, we talked a lot about Alice training and what happens if you have an active shooter come in, and obviously life is more important than voting. And so we just recommend that they save themselves. I don't know what other, if you have fires, of course, we have ways to, we have it all in our continuity of operations plan of all of those things, bombs, fires, water. If your machine breaks down, we do have extra machines. We do deploy new machines. Again, remember the stick has all of your information in it. So we've already tested our spares. We'll bring out a new machine, and then we will replace that, put the USB in, and make sure the numbers are still the same. If for some reason we don't feel good about what we're doing there, then at the end of the evening, when it's time to close down that machine, we will ask the election judges just to start over. We'll have the election judges do the override like Sarah did, take them back to 0, and then run all the ballots through. If for some reason we feel like there was a glitch or something and our numbers don't match up, we don't take any chances. We want to make sure it's correct. So those are some things I can think of. Do you have any that have happened to you?
I think the ballots are in.
Are we good? So we have a result? Okay. So Sarah, on your checkoff slip, how many do you have? I have 11 on my balancing sheet of how many ballots I had left, and I have 11 voters. So our election judges, oh, and the machine is 11. So we can balance. Thank you very much for voting. Okay, so with that, we do have the results. Sarah can take that. Well, for right now, we're going to do what we normally do, but then later I can give you the results tape and you guys can have that. So the judges now will close the polls by pushing the close poll button, and the tape will roll out with those results. Judges will sign this tape and put it in the secure bag. Again, the judges will turn off the machine and remove the USB sticks and take them to the secure bag along with the check-in sheet, which is what Sarah was using today, or whatever other counties do. The judges will follow the directions to seal up the machine as the county clerk specifies. In Fremont County, we do leave all of our ballots in the machine and we lock them internally and externally. So Sarah will do that here in just a minute after she turns that down. And just so you know, all required items are to be put in a secure container of some sort, and it has to be locked and sealed so that the courier has no access to any of it. So whatever that is that each county has, again, we use the bank bag. The one key will stay with the head judge, and at Election Central, we have the mirror key to it. The chain of custody is always filled out. So now when we get our courier, which could be an election judge by statute, it can be an election judge or law enforcement personnel. So they will sign that they took it from us and we sign off, the election judge signs off also that that happened. And then it comes to Election Central. And at Election Central, we also have that key. We sign off on the chain of custody that we received it. That's when we open the bag and mark it off of the check-in sheet that we have.
Hold on one second. Yeah, go ahead. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to see one of the express ballots. Can we see those that have been voted?
Sure.
Can we
You see mine?
around, just the express ballots? I want to see what's actually printed on all of them.
You bet that we can do that. At the appropriate time when they.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
We would just seal it at this point, just so that nobody can access it, but we're at a demo. You can see it.
And Mr. Chairman, part of this demo, we'll show the post-election audit portion. And so during that audit, we will show how the express vote is audited as well.
okay. Look forward to that.
Okay. So once we open that bag and we get the USB out, it will be inserted into the ERM machine and the unofficial results will be reported. You do that. So we do this all night long. Again, I have 8 vote centers and I have absentees and early voting. So those come over when they're completed. We have a log of when we received them, and then we've changed our practices. Once they hit our table, they go in immediately. Sometimes we used to leave the absentees to the last. That's caused a lot of confusion. So we just bring them in whenever we get them. So at this point now, we get the results. And this is a process until all results are received. And so that you know, so once we get it on here, again, this is a hardened computer, not connected to the internet, but of course we have to send our secure results to the Secretary of State. So we do that through an encrypted USB stick to a secure email to the Secretary of State. So we take a fresh USB stick and we take the report off of here. We put it on that stick. It goes to, my computer is right next to it. So I go to my computer, which is hooked to the internet. I go to the secure site of the Secretary of State. I email it to them. I also can put it on our website at the time, and we can also use that to make our copies for whoever's there, whatever each clerk wants to do. That USB stick can no longer be used now in this machine or any machine. So, and that goes into we have a tub of where we just throw them in and they are not to be used again. The reason being, obviously, because I went to an internet machine, I'm not bringing anything back to a hardened machine. Once the secretary.
Representative Weber, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Clerk Freeze. I have a question on the USB that you're purchasing. You just go to Walmart and get one? Is that how that works?
So,
Ms. Freeze?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Weber, no, so they're like $100 that we get from ES&S. They are the only USBs made in the United States, by the way, and they're encrypted. So if you put them in a regular computer, so the ones we use for our machines go in here that way. The other one would be the type that you could just take a file off of, the file of it's a PDF, and then take that to another machine. But I'm just saying I don't use then, those could be off the shelf. You guys use off the shelf or, go ahead.
Mr. Irwin?
Mr. Chairman,
Let him finish and then we'll go. Mr. Irwin?
the USB sticks that Fremont County is demonstrating here, they're the ES&S encrypted sticks. There is a procedure in some counties where they can use an off-the-shelf USB. They'll sanitize it, and then that can take the report from electionware to a connected computer, but it can never come back, whether it's sanitized or not. That USB can never come back. It just goes into general county rotation. So any department, county attorney, sheriff, whoever needs a USB at that point. And that's the case in some counties.
Let's, Representative Locke was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question on the data that you're sending. Are those files hash verified at some point? Are they hashed, and is that hash captured somewhere? I'm just curious if the data itself is being, first of all, it's probably encapsulated in a file of some kind, and is the file hashed and is the hash tracked? Thank you.
Mr. Irwin?
Mr. Chairman, I'll admit, I don't understand your question. It's way over my head. But if you can write it down, I will promise you, I will follow up with that question. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Chairman. Case, you say these sticks cannot be reused, they cannot be used again. What keeps them from being used again if you accidentally stick it back in the machine? I mean, is there a one-time use? How do you know you can't use it but once?
Who would like to handle that?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Representative Johnson, so there is nothing that tells you that it's already been in there once. So it is on the county clerk to be diligent. So that's what I said. I had a box. Once I'm done putting it into my computer and I do what I do with it, I take it out, it goes in the box. You can't use this one anymore. It's way away from, it's not even around this machine anymore. So then we have the clean ones that are left there. But it is up to the county clerk to be diligent with that process.
And Ms. Freese, would it be fair to say that that operation of taking the results on that USB, and taking it to your computer and sending it into the Secretary of State, that's something you do personally or your deputy does? I mean, it's not broadly, it's a narrow group of people that can do that, right?
Mr. Chairman, yes, in our world, there's Margie, myself, so my chief deputy, myself, and my IT supervisor are the
Gotcha.
only three people that are allowed to do those.
Representative Weber?
Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clerk Freeze, when you were talking about the USB port, what computer do you put that into?
Ms.
You
Freese?
take it from,
oh. Go ahead, finish your question. I'm
when
sorry.
it comes from the machine, you take the USB port out of the machine, and then where do you take that to?
Mr. Chairman, Representative
Freese.
Weber, so my not personal, but my work computer is in the same room. So, and I have all the information from the Secretary of State on my email stream, obviously. So it goes to my computer, which is hooked to the internet because I do have to send it by secure email to the Secretary of State, which is a reason I don't use them again after that point.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, Clerk Freeze, on your work computer, is that a computer that is completely up to date with the latest version of the operating systems and everything that elections would be required?
Ms. Freese?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Weber, yes, that's my IT department's requirements for the county, so that we're up to date on virus scans, firewalls, everything to do with our computer systems. And he is very well aware of election protocol. He's part of we work with the EAI, ISAC, which I don't know if we're going to have that anymore, but that group has a lot of standards. He is a part of that with us.
So I think it might be helpful if we just thought about the very big picture here. There still is the paper ballot. It's still, we've got it. It's been signed off, it's been protected. We have them even from the express vote machine. So even if this system, whatever the connections to or whatever, if something happens, they fail, or there's some breach in security, you pick the contingency. If that happens, you still have those paper ballots to go back to. And they could be counted by hand if you had to. But I think sometimes we think about all this stuff that tabulates and makes things easier for getting the vote together and thinking that that's where the security lies. Really, the real security lies in that you've got the stack of the original ballots that were cast, filled out by the voter, and looked at by the voter and cast. And we know that, but Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman Case. I would still ask about the barcode across the top. It's reading the barcode. It's not reading the actual name. So you'll get your ballot back and it'll be printed out with a write-in or whatever. But that, your machine just counts the barcode. It doesn't read the actual name. So I'm just a skeptic because I don't understand how these machines work. I can't get in the middle of them. I don't understand, I don't think most people do, how they get counted. But there could be a way that could be a flawed count because they're using the barcode and not the names. Is there a way for those machines to actually read the names and not use the barcode at all?
Ms.
Thanks,
Freeze?
Mr. Chairman, the way that coding, Mr. Chairman, Representative Johnson, I apologize. The way the machines work on this is they have to read code all the time. This is the code of the paper ballot. They're not reading this. They see the ovals, which are connected to this coding. They're not reading this. They're reading the coding. It's the same thing, and that's why I mentioned, if you're not sure, put it back in the machine, and it will show you again what the coding says. The printout was in response to people saying, I don't know what the code says, because that's what it used to be, is just the code. I don't know what the code says. I'm not sure that was my ballot. So they reduced it to writing for people to look at and say, this is what I voted for. But they all have code. You have to have code for a machine to read that.
Back to you, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman Case. A question, when you do a hand recount, do you read the code or you have a machine read the code? That's the question. If you do a hand recount, would you look at what oval was filled in or what name was put in there and not read the code? Is that how you would do the recount?
Mr. Chairman,
Freeze.
Representative Johnson, so if we're talking about the way we do recounts right now, they're through the machine, so the machine would do the recount. In a hand count, obviously, you're looking at the names that are on there. So you would take your express vote and you would do it by name, as you would do it by name on here, because a hand count does not need code. A machine needs code, but a hand count does not need code.
So most of the time that you do a recount, the essence of it is to take the stack of ballots and put them back through the machine. Would that be fair?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
Yeah. So if you're required to do a hand count where you actually looked at the ballot, I think that's of interest to a lot of people. And as you recall, Senator Beitman's bill had the ability to do hand counts in certain circumstances. That's kind of the meat of this whole part of this discussion. So could you elaborate on that and we'll get more questions?
Mr. Chairman, I can just say that we will be working at the end of this month on testing procedures. We heard a lot about hand count. It's not something that we won't not discuss. A lot of states do some kind of audit, or during their testing, they do a hand count. I think what's important to remember as you're going through this process is that right now we have no adjudication. It sounds so simple. But as I mentioned, people don't follow directions, and you would be amazed at what you get on a ballot. And now you're going to try to figure that out. That's why we have machines. Is back in the day, I'm old enough here, not paper ballots, or chiseling on stone, but I'm back in the day of the shoot machines where it was really hard to read some of that stuff. But the reason they went to machines is because there was things going on where they couldn't say that the two people that were counting and were right, that was the right count. So that's why they went to machines and take all the emotion out of it. And this machine doesn't care. They just want to look at what the coding is. But I think when we look forward to possible hand recounts for audits for the testing purposes, which is a great time to do it, to make sure people feel good about the machine, we need to have you all thinking about adjudication statutes. And I think that's one of the things that our president said, that we were going to check with other states and see what they have for that. You have to have that. You have to be able to say, what happens if they marked it like this? Because there are instructions, very clear instructions. You complete the oval, and then what if you see one that has a half completed oval? There was a gentleman that told me one time, here, look at this, there was this one marked with an oval, and then the second one was marked with a oval. That would be an overvote in this machine because you marked both of them, but they marked out the first one. So that's very clear to me. They didn't want that. That's not clear to me. They want to me, that might mean I definitely want the one I have an X with, but you might say, I definitely don't want the one with the X. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, consider us working with you on that, on adjudication, because that's going to be the biggest part of hand counting.
Fair enough. I've got some questions over here. Representative Brown. Then we'll do Representative Webb.
You just told us that the code along the side is what the tabulator count. I marked that ballot, that code was already on there. Does that mean that it already determined the vote before
No.
I ever marked it?
Mr. Chairman, did you want to get?
Okay,
We'll let it.
take a deep breath.
Mr.
You're in
Chairman.
Lander, Wyoming, in the middle of a beautiful spring, and Mr.
Chairman.
Irwin.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify two things if I could have a chance. One will be Representative Brown's question, and then I want to back up a little bit
Okay.
to a question Representative Weber had. In the meeting materials was included. So after the session, we heard those concerns about the barcode. And so we asked ourselves, give us some more information. How exactly is it counting? And so I think what Clerk Freeze is trying to say is the code on the side of the oval ballot, once the optical scanning equipment finds that there's a mark in a bubble, it's then corresponding it to a row and a column, a grid pattern. And the same is true on the barcodes. And if you go further down in that handout, it would show what each series of barcode means. So column, row. And so I think, Mr. Chairman, I hope that answers Representative Brown's question, that what the coding on the side is doing is giving the optical scan a place to find where that bubble is. And so that's why the testing is so important. And that's why the testing statute says that each position have a different number of votes, right? Each candidate have a different number of votes is what it says, because then you can verify whether that column 9, row 15 corresponds to Betsy Brown or whether it was Kara Craig.
Okay, and we got to remind you, your mic wasn't on apparently, so let's everybody, we've got to use our mics. Go ahead, Representative Brown, follow up. Is that mic working? I don't hear the mic, sir.
Just get closer to.
It's not green.
Maybe it doesn't work, you guys. Let's try a different one. Thanks, we're sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr.
This is what happens when you have PBS and public radio in the same room. This is, now we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. So when I put my ballot in the machine, it didn't show me when I put that in the machine, it didn't show what my ballot was. So I don't know when I put it in that machine that it counted it the way I marked it. So again, we're looking for trust. And I have to say, I don't know how my ballot was counted. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Brown,
Let's
we're
go
going
ahead,
to go
Ms.
into,
Freese.
yeah, I'm sorry. We'll be going into the auditing portion of this here in a minute, and hopefully you can find your ballot today, and we'll see how the machine counted it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Irwin?
I apologize. I did want to backtrack and just clarify a question that Representative Weber had. I might have misheard it. And so if I'm wrong, let me know. Each of the tabulating pieces of equipment have that USB stick in it from ES&S. At the end of the night, we take that stick out of the tabulating equipment and bring it to the electionware computer. This is essentially a compiler. It takes all the individual vote counts and compiles them into one report, one auditing system. And then that stick that we download a PDF report, and I know Clerk Freese will get to this in a minute, the Excel file that shows the cast vote records that we are required to send to the Secretary of State's office, those go onto a USB stick that has not interacted with any piece of equipment. It's a fresh USB stick that's in our stockpile. Those reports are downloaded onto that stick. That stick is then taken to Clerk Freese's computer for dissemination to the Secretary of State and to the public. And I think that, and then that stick, to Representative Johnson's question, does not come back into the system. Is there a better way, and we'll work on that. Absolutely.
Okay. We've got, I know Representative Yin has a question, but we're going to do Representative Webb first and then Representative Yin. It should be a green light.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and
What
clerks.
housekeeping? Okay, everybody. We're idiots. We're legislators. So you got to have the tall mic, not the other one. That's for the secret conversations of the school board when they're mad about me. No, it's not true. They don't meet in secret. Representative Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and clerks. Thank you for your diligent work because I know it's got to be a daunting task and we're just learning about that. My question is because this equipment is all electronic, it's got to have some kind of software that runs in each component, including the USB drive. I'm curious to know how often and the process that the software updates take place. Thank you.
Clerk Irwin.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Webb, I would also ask that you write that question down and we will follow up in a more thorough answer, and we'll be happy to copy the entire committee. I think that's only fair. But what I can say is Wyoming statute requires that every system be certified by the Election Assistance Commission, the EAC, and that it adheres to the Voluntary Voting Standards Guideline. It doesn't specify which version of VVSG, however. So our statute just says certified by the EAC. And so, Mr. Chairman, the systems we're currently using are under what's called EVS 6060, 6.0.0. And so nothing can change in that parameter unless an engineering change order is submitted to the Election Assistance Commission, who then tests the system, tests the update, and certifies, yes, that can be deployed in that system. And so, Mr. Chairman, what we as county clerks are required to do is utilize equipment that has been certified for use by the Secretary of State's office. Their certification process requires that it hold and maintain EAC certification. And I know the Secretary's up later, and so I'm sure he can opine far better than I have on their role. But Mr. Chairman, I hope that answers, but I will absolutely follow up with a better written response after this meeting. If Representative Webb, you would just mind putting it on that form. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I wanted to see if I could maybe restate some of the concerns that my fellow colleagues have. So from what I understand, they're concerned that either that the express vote machine is printing out barcodes that don't match the actual text on the ballot of the name that they're saying, or the reading machine is not going to necessarily read the name that is correctly printed on the ballot or represented in the barcode. And so ultimately, that's a question of, has there been tampering that takes place either from the machine or from the software that we get from our vendor? And then how do we make sure that what gets counted is what got voted on by the voter? And I think it's very important to be skeptical about computer systems to make sure that it is secure. I mean, I think that's ultimately how we have security, is by being skeptical. I think what we're missing is that we have this process that the clerks have where they run a test audit of every single machine before they go into the system. And then there are tamper seals where we can detect whether the machine has been tampered with after they've already tested the machine. So I guess the question ultimately is there a way, since we're testing the machine, is there a way for the system to be printing out things differently than the way we tested it? Or are the machines accurately putting out both printed ballots through the express vote machine or reading them in through the actual tabulator the way that they were when they tested it? Or is it possible for the testing to be flawed? And do we need to go over the testing procedure to make sure that the machines are audited correctly. And then we have a post-audit after, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the post-audit. But does that, I mean, does that capture both, I mean, I think what the concerns from the members are is that that we're not sure what the machines do, but if we're testing it beforehand, are we actually, isn't that verifying what the machines are supposed to be doing? Sorry if that's a little bit rambly, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Representative. I'll look back to Clerk Irwin.
Mr. Chairman, there's no coincidence that our number one interim topic request was testing and auditing. That is the cornerstone of ensuring the systems work as they're supposed to. We've heard Chairman Knapp time and time again talk about one of the tenets of election integrity is auditing, right? Post 2020, we thought that the auditing procedures could be improved. So we worked closely with the Secretary of State's office and developed the post-election audit that Clerk Freeze will show you momentarily, which we thought was a much more robust audit. Not that the other audit's not necessary, it absolutely is. We do 2 post-election audits, but the one that Clerk Freeze will demonstrate is a little bit more robust and actually audits the ballots cast on election day. We worked on that with the Secretary of State's office. Those were promulgated as rules. And then we worked again with the Secretary of State's office to codify those in statute because we thought it was a good strengthening of our auditing procedures. We think there's more that can be done. And so, Mr. Chairman, again, I'll go back to my opening. Our goal is not to suggest any language today or suggest a statutory change. We just want to provide some deeper context, but we will certainly be bringing you some suggestions at a later point, which we think strengthen testing and auditing procedures. And so we would agree with Representative Yin's comment that testing and auditing is very important, if not the most important aspect of our role with the equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Got one more. Let's go Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, clerks. Julie, I have a question for you and then just a procedural question. When you take the USB port and you put it into your computer that you set in your office to send the reports to the Secretary of State, does your computer that you work with have to be EAC certified or have some sort of a different security on it as different regulations would be with the regular election machines?
Clerk Freeze.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Weber, no, because I'm not putting the encrypted, I may have said that earlier, but the encrypted one with the results go in here. What I'm doing is taking a PDF on a USB to send to their secure site. So no.
Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clerk Freeze, thank you for clarifying that. On a different question, I had been asked quite a bit on how are when you program the machines, do you do that with a USB port? Does the information come from ES&S? How is that done?
Clerk
Mr.
Freeze.
Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Weber, so each one of us have our own determination of what we're comfortable doing. So there's what's called a PYO, is program your own. So we do that in Fremont County. I know Park County does it. Can't remember who all else does it. Carbon County, Teton County, Uinta County, no, not Natrona. There's several of us that do our own coding. So this machine here, we go from starting with the candidates that we have.
And when you say this machine here,
this machine is the hardened results machine.
There you
So
go.
we get all the information, we put it in there about the election, everything. Everything you see on here has to be designed. And some of us are okay with that, some are not. And so the ones who are not, there's a SFT portal site, which is to ES&S, which is also a secure site. And so they send their information to ES&S, who does the coding for them. So I'm going to only talk about mine because I don't do the other site. So somebody else could do that. But so from here, it takes us 2 days to a week, depending on how much time we have. And we code every single bit of this. And what we do is as we get a ballot that we can print out, we test it to make sure it does what it's supposed to do. Until we are convinced we have, so there is also a uniformity document that we have done that all of our ballots look the same. So we make sure that has happened. And we make sure that we have all of our candidates in our county. We do let all of our candidates know that these samples will be on our website, and they have like 2 days to look at it and say it's right, it's wrong, not. We send it to the school districts, whoever's on the ballot, we send it to them, the towns. They all get to make sure that we didn't mess something up, because after watching these for a while, your eyes start not seeing things. So we make sure as best we can that our ballots are correct. Once we do that, we do our test deck. You can build a test deck, and then we go to our printers. That will, if that gives you kind of a nutshell type of thing of what we do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you, I'll turn it back to you guys. I think appreciate this so far.
Okay.
Help to bring us home.
All right, so the one thing I didn't get to say is once that we do use that USB and we bring it over here, so when we contact the Secretary of State, just so you know, we have to wait until they call us back. So we send them this email with our information, they call back and they confirm, Julie, I see on Representative so-and-so and so-and-so, their vote count is 1,000 or 250. Is that correct? Yes. And they do several of those with us to make sure what we sent to them really is what they got. Once they have confirmed that we match, we are allowed to go home. So I just wanted to let you know that we do have this connection with them. And once we get that clearance, we can go home for the night. On election night or on Wednesday, the results may be reviewed to see if any automatic recounts will be necessary. Were there any anomalies that we should look into? And it's not something you're going to maybe do that night, but you might go, wow, something looks weird here. I want to check that out tomorrow. So that you want to put that on your list. Will there be any races that the write-in will affect the race? And I've heard a lot of testimonies somewhere, I don't even remember where it was, that we have to do all the write-ins. We don't. The statutes say if it will affect the outcome of the race, we'll have to count those. So places where nobody ran for office, we're definitely counting those. If there was a race and the person on there got 30 votes, but the write-ins show 40 votes, you're going to count them because it could have beat the person who was on there. So those are the things that we just look at to make sure of what we have to do. We will make sure we do those in the next couple days because canvas is looming. So the next thing that happens is that we do prepare for the canvas and we bring everything to the canvas board. So I didn't want to miss that. Earlier in my practice, I had missed that. So there is a canvas board proceedings. And usually during that or before it or sometime in there, there's a time frame we have to do the post audit, and that's what we're going to do right now. So this is the one I just want to mention to you. When your ballot goes through this machine, it scans a copy of your ballot. Every single ballot goes through, it's scanned. So even if these were destroyed somehow, it is in the USB stick. So let's say we left this at the polls, we brought the USB stick, the whole place burned down, I still have the results here. So there are 2 locations of that. So, pardon me. Oh yeah, so, and here, because I won't put this on any other screen. So if you want to come around and see this better, we open that up to the chairman to allow you guys to move around to stay closer.
Absolutely. If you guys want to.
And I'm going to ask these guys, I think with all the discussion, I would like them to review every single one of your ballots. So if you guys want to come close to see what might be your ballot, I would give us a couple seconds to do that, unless you can see it that far back.
Will they need a microphone?
These guys, we could get that close to Sarah, I guess.
Yeah, just in case. And
So how that happens, let me tell you, also on election night, we have to send an electronic copy of the results and from the encrypted USB, again, a whole series to the Secretary of State by that same secure email. The Secretary of State will return a CSV file to us with ballots that we are to review. So we don't review all of them. There's a algorithm of how many ballots that we need to look at. And we do the state races down through the legislative races, I believe is what we did last time. If we locally think that we want to look at something, that is up to us to do that audit as well. Setting up for the post audit, we have instructions that are provided by ES&S and also the Secretary of State that we follow, and the audit is set up for review. So what people ask us, why can't everybody just see this when they come in here? Since write-in handwriting could reveal a person's identity, and if any of you guys wrote in and you guys might know each other's writing, you might see this. The county clerk staff and sworn canvass board members are the only ones to review how the ballot before us on the screen was counted by the tabulation equipment. In small precincts, if you had 2 votes for a certain candidate and one of them was a write-in, and you could almost guess that, then their privacy of their vote is gone. And the Constitution requires that we keep your vote private. So that's why we don't let just everybody see that. I will say,
By housekeeping, if any other members want to go look at the screen.
and I will say, at
Go ahead.
Laramie County, everybody could see theirs because there is no handwriting, because it's all done by, I'm
Machine.
just gonna put that point out there. I'm sorry. And small splits, though, might indicate that too, so, but at least they can't see the handwriting. Again, we can't hook this to any kind of thing, so again, if you want to come down. So Sarah will read how the machine voted a ballot, and Margie will confirm the vote on the ballot. And generally, the next person is me, and I don't have it on here, but I'm going to pretend that I'm doing this. So on here, on that list that I get from the Secretary of State, I have to say whether the vote count was correct or not. And that's what goes to the Secretary of State. So Sarah and Margie, go ahead.
This is the school, what you just voted on. This is what you guys.
These are
just
your
voted.
guys' ballot.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is.
Yep, Baldwin Creek School, subject is, and this is how the person voted. Science, subject,
Okay.
pet, and break.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Could we get the microphone closer in there? It's kind of fascinating.
Hello?
There you go. We want to know. We want to know.
Okay. Subject, science. Pet, cat, write-in, spring break, no.
Correct.
Wow, those are astonishing results. I hope the media picked it up. Okay,
Subject, undervoted, pet, write-in, spring break, no.
Correct.
But you don't say what the. Somebody wrote it down for you.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about write-ins, so we're gonna give it to ya. Subject, social studies, pet, horse, undervoted, spring break, no.
Correct.
Subject, write-in, pet, horse, write-in, it's overvoted.
So of course that wasn't voted, but you can see here where their handwriting is what they wrote in, and that is correct.
Oh, I know by his handwriting, I know who that is. Spring break, yes.
Okay, we're on ballot 5.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Subject, social studies, pet, cat, and gerbil, spring break, yes.
Correct.
Subject, math, pet, write-in, spring break, yes.
Correct.
Subject, math, favorite pet is horse, undervoted, spring break, yes.
Correct.
Subject, science, pet, cat, tarantula, spring break, yes.
Correct.
there's some weird people on this.
Subject, social studies, pet, horse, write-in, spring break, no.
Correct.
Subject, social studies, pet, horse, write-in, spring break, yes.
Correct.
Subject, math, science, pet, write-in, spring break, no. That
This
the
is an overvote.
subject was overvoted, sorry.
Correct. That's the last one.
That's all 11.
Yeah, well, I intentionally overvoted too.
So now we're going to get the final results.
Yes, ma'am. Let's take theirs.
Or if Margie wants to read it off of there, off your screen.
Do they want them? Here, I'll read it.
Do we need like a drum roll or?
All right, the favorite school subject, top vote getter was social studies with 4, math 2, science 2, 1 write-in, 1 overvote, 1 undervote. Favorite pet, it's a vote for 2. Top vote getter was a write-in, so in that case, we would probably have to count that. And the second one is horse for 4, cat 3, gerbil 1, tarantula 1, 2 overvotes and 2 undervotes. The question on spring break, yes, 6, 5, no, and that's the end of that. And I will say at the 5th grade, they always have a tie, always. I will tell you, there's always a tie, and we have to talk about how that works, so.
Great, but we really want you to count those write-ins on that one. You'll have to let us know later. Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ms. Freeze, you alluded to the canvassing board. I've thought a lot about that since we got out of Cheyenne, and I'm just curious, have you run into a situation ever where the canvassing board was reluctant to sign off on the election?
Ms. Freeze.
So, Mr. Chairman, no, I have not, and Senator Landon, sorry. No, I have not. I know I have been through a lot of canvasses. We have had some, so I'm going to give a particular race that was hard on us, but the current sheriff lost by 13 votes. And the roads around Fremont County were closed from Jeffrey City to here, and he knew he had supporters in Jeffrey City, and there were 13 ballots that didn't make it here. And so the sheriff, who was going to lose his race, was wanting to challenge that. And we had a lot of people, and my boss was Alma Nichols. She was new at the job of county clerk. And I called the Secretary of State's office and I said, I need help. I've never had, something like this. I just want some assistance. So the Secretary of State's office, which was Kathy Carpin at the time, came down and we had a good talk about all of the things we had done and what you can do and what you can't do by statute. So that was the closest I've come to having any problems of that nature.
So
Go ahead,
so
Senator
a
Landon.
quick follow-up then. So Ms. Freeze, a canvassing board does have the opportunity to shut the election down, essentially, right? If I'm wrong on that, what exactly do we expect out of those canvassing board folks?
So
go ahead.
again, we were talking, Mr. Chairman, Senator Landon. So remember that, so we have the unofficial results, and then we have provisional ballots. And if the people who had to do a provisional ballot, they have till 5 o'clock Wednesday to get their information that was missing on election day. So we bring that to the canvass board and we tell them what they brought to make sure that their vote could be counted. The canvass board decides if we should count those ballots. And any other problems that we had with our election that we weren't sure if we should count or not, we bring those to the canvass board. So the unofficial can change, obviously, while we're making official. The balancing, when the clerks get all this stuff back, they make sure that their election judges have everything that's balanced. Where there are some problems at the election, I will tell you one instance where the canvass board member could maybe do what you're talking about, but in a section. So we have a lot of districts in Fremont County, and we had just had the new county commissioner districts. And one of our precincts, I told them how carefully they had to be to give out the right ballot style. Said, make sure you read the top, from the poll book, make sure they get the right one. They gave out like 18 incorrect ballots. So when you look at the results between the winner and the loser was something like 15 or something. So you pretend that you have to take it away from the winner, give it to the loser, the numbers. That's the way we do it in our brain. Okay, if these people shouldn't have had it, then let's take it away from the winner. Now it changes the outcome of the election. The canvass boards can, in discussion with the county clerk, there's 3 of us that get to vote. We would say, per statute, we're going to have to rerun this part of the election. We will not certify this part of the election. It will be rerun. And we did have to do that. But the rest of it that was fine was, approved. If they don't approve this, I can't send it to the Secretary of State. Nobody can take their offices. Again, I've not had that conversation with any of my canvass boards, except for the pieces that by statute, it tells you how to remedy that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you back up the thumb drives after the election? So when you do your thumb drive, do you back that up so you have more than one?
Ms.
Mr.
Freeze?
Chairman, Representative Brown, so it's not the thumb drives we back up, but it's in the system. So we do back up our election. Yes, we are required to back up our election, which is the results.
And how would you do that if that's not connected to the internet?
You just back them up to a thumb drive.
A thumb
Because
drive.
remember, we're going to do what we're doing is the results.
Gotcha.
And then
Fair.
we put them in the safe. We keep them in our safe is where we keep them.
Okay. I think you guys did a great job. What else do you have
Just
to add?
before we leave this
Oh,
subject, Mr.
Senator
Chairman,
Dockstader.
just a little more on that canvassing board, Ms. Freeze. The board has the ultimate say and who appoints the board. A little more on that, please.
Ms. Freeze.
Mr. Chairman, or Senator Dockstader, so the way the statute reads is you have a representative from the Republican, or the two main parties, Republican and Democrat parties. The way I do it is I do send a letter to the chairman of both parties, well, actually way early, and I say, here's all the things I need. I'm going to need election judges. I'm going to need you for testing. I'm going to need you for canvas board, and I need you to give me names so that I can have, my organization. If they do not supply someone for me, then I can go out and get a Republican and a Democrat, generally who has not been involved with the election, to come and serve as a canvas board member. That's how I do it. Generally, like I said, there's nothing that says specifically that the party chair has to do it or whatever. We've just taken that stance that that's where we send our letters to, because they have people who usually want to work doing those things. So.
Okay. Keep going.
So I think the only thing I wanted to add before I turn it over is within 30 days of the canvas board, in addition to this audit that we did, so within 30 days, we are required by statute to audit 5% of our voting machines. So for us, it's one machine. And we run that entire test deck again. And as I mentioned, for my general election, it was 1,185. And you can drink a lot of coffee and talk and do a lot of stuff while we're doing that, but we do that in public as well. And so we're required to do that and keep that report.
Thank you.
But thank you. And with that, thank you for letting us bring all this stuff, by the way, and thank you for all the questions. It gives us a whole list of things to be talking about at our meeting later this month. And I will turn it over to the Honorable Teton County Clerk, Mo Murphy.
Thank you.
Clerk Murphy, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Senators, Representatives, once again, thank you for having us here this morning, and Mr. Chairman for hosting us last night. My name is Maureen, or Mo Murphy, as some of you know, and I have the honor of serving my community as the Teton County Clerk. I was appointed in June of 2020 and elected in November of 2022. I also sit as Secretary and Treasurer of the Clerks Association. I'm here to succinctly summarize what you have heard today. The purpose of this morning was to educate both the veterans and the newcomers on the Corporations Committee on what we as clerks do in our election process. As you heard from Clerk Hutchinson, our roles as county clerks include executing the statutory obligations that both you and your predecessors have created in law, both for elections and the many other duties that are described in statute. In the 42 titles of Wyoming statute, the county clerk is mentioned or has a role in more than half. Clerk Smith explained to you the timeline on both budgeting and elections and the duties that we fulfill in our offices day to day. As you heard, there are multiple balls in the air on any given day, and it is why we emphasize through testimony that there are other implications we have to consider in timeline that could create a ripple effect. When we testify, it isn't that we necessarily agree or disagree with policy. It is that we are looking at the entirety of timeline and our offices and what the implications could be in the laws you create. And finally, Clerk Freeze and her deputies took you through how an election is logic and accurately tested, processed, and how we uniformly post-audit the results with your specific votes. Mr. Chairman, we now defer to you on if you have any more questions for us, if you want to collect the forms that you wrote your questions on.
Okay, any other questions at this point? Go ahead, Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this would be for anybody. And thank you again for the demonstration today from all of you. I think that in Wyoming, we have extra faith in our elections because of our clerks. And I think that's important, which goes to my question. Although we're dealing with Wyoming,
the concern sometimes is the machines, right? Whether it's software, programming, coding, that like. How would you explain just nationwide in areas where votes were, I guess, swapped? Somebody thought they voted for one person and it actually counted as another. Do you think that it is, that would have to happen with collusion from a clerk? Or do you think that, that would get caught in an auditing process? How would you explain some of those anomalies that have been evidenced to happen across the country?
Who wants to take that? Clerk Irwin?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Coma Chairman, there's a famous case in Pennsylvania. It was a judicial retention question. It's a yes or no. And in that case, I think this is the instance you're referring to, when folks would vote, the vote tally was flipped from what they had actually voted. And you never want to see that happen to a fellow election administrator, no matter where they may be. But selfishly, that was a good thing for us to see because it strengthened our resolve in the testing and auditing procedures. That should have been caught in testing. As a matter of fact, it did alter a little bit how we tested our express vote machine. And it further strengthened that our auditing procedure is robust, could be improved. But Mr. Chairman, I hear those concerns. I understand those concerns, certainly. And the ones that are happening outside of Wyoming, we want to learn from them. Again, you don't want that to happen to anybody, but you want to learn from them. Ideally, yes, they would be caught in testing and auditing, but I can't speak at length about other states' testing or auditing procedures. I'm doggone proud of ours, I'll tell you that. Not going to deny that we could make some improvements. If you think the election code will stay stagnant, you're wrong. It has to be updated consistently. We recognize that, and we want to be there to help you in that endeavor.
And just to be clear, when you said election code, people were not talking about computer
Oh, yeah.
code. We're talking.
Title
we
22, Mr. Chairman.
sometimes use code for the book of laws. Go ahead, Mr. Irwin.
Mr. Chairman, that's about all I have on that subject, but recognizing that there have been abnormalities or concerns elsewhere, we see that. We read the same thing. We understand the concern. All we can do is get better.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Just in follow-up, we have a maintenance agreement that we sign, I think, with ES&S annually. If not, I don't know if it's annually, but that would be my question. And then in some other states, they do require to have at least the source coding given to the election official or the clerk. Is that something that you would recommend for Wyoming in doing our maintenance agreements? And is that a possibility?
Clerk Irwin.
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to find the statutory citation for you, so I apologize if it seems like I'm not engaged, but I am.
No, you're fine. And if somebody wouldn't mind giving a definition of what's source code, what are we all talking about the same thing? I don't know what that is.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Wyoming statute 2211-103D, and it would be Romanet, I believe, 5, proof that, and this is in the application process to become a certified vendor, election equipment vendor in the state of Wyoming. So again, those vendors make that application to the Secretary of State, and I apologize to the Secretary because I'm somewhat stepping on his toes here. And so I'd be happy to defer that question, but 2211-103D5 requires that application contain proof that the vendor's escrow account containing the source code for electronic voting systems and system components for which certification is being sought, including any source code updates. So, Mr. Chairman, I would say we already have that. And what does source code mean? Layman's. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer that question also, just like I did Representative Locke's. I can't speak eloquently enough about it to not look like a fool.
Okay.
And so I would rather write a response.
That's never stopped me before.
Well, I think there's some people behind me that would argue that I've done a fine job of making a fool of myself, but I'm trying to be better, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we appreciate that. And these answers we'll make available publicly, and we certainly will. Representative Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is not meant to belittle or demean or but just to get straight answer. And that is, I think we had a situation in Wyoming in this last election where some voting results were questioned. And I'm curious as to if they were caught, how they were caught, or why they were not caught during this process that we've discussed today.
Okay, should we be more specific about the situation? Is this the Weston County situation? Yep, let's just be specific.
Yes.
I yield to the clerks. Who wants to take that?
Mr. Chairman,
Clerk
I
Irwin.
actually believe it'd be inappropriate for us to comment at this time. I know there's an investigation ongoing at the state level about that incident, and some of us have provided testimony in that investigation, and I think it would be inappropriate for us to weigh in at this time. What I can say is any instance, and this one specifically, is further evidence that strong testing and auditing procedures are necessary. And furthermore, that training for election officials is paramount. I think we can't get enough training resources, and I want to thank all of you as legislators. In the last 2 sessions, you have appropriated funds for us to obtain election training, and we appreciate that. It's going to good use. We've got some exciting things on the horizon, but Mr. Chairman, I think that instance specifically, I don't want to go any further, but it strengthens the argument that testing and auditing is paramount and training is of utmost importance.
Thank you for that, and we certainly respect that. But the results, whatever conclusions are reached from that investigation, will be made public at a certain time, right? And we'll all share in that. Okay. Thank you for that. Senator Dockstader.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I defer to Representative Yin first and then follow up with right after him, if that's okay.
Representative Yin, I'm sorry, didn't notice your hand.
No worries. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Clerk Irvin and clerks, I was told about the election at the state GOP meeting this last weekend. So at the vice chair position, they had 74 people registered to vote and 70 votes came in, and they declared a winner. 4 votes after they declared a winner ended up missing. They found them afterwards, and then it had a different result. Is that, during our current process, is that something that could happen in our current election process?
Our
What
current
happened
public
at
elections.
that meeting?
Yep. The jab is well played and noted, and we'll let them take a crack at it. We all have humor here. Who would like to address that? Ms. Freese?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Vian, as part of my presentation today, I showed you the balance sheet. I helped my party during a time when we selected a new clerk of district court because I had questioned also exactly how the vote count always worked. So balancing is paramount. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're counting how many of you want to go to lunch and certain people pick one place. You better be figuring out how many's out there and how many votes you have. So as I showed you today, you have so many people check in, then you have so many ballots that come in. And then when you're looking at things for like this ballot, there's a vote for 2, and you have to account for the undervotes, which is generally where lay people miss. They don't understand that. That is a huge amount of what you do to make sure it balances for your vote results. So that could have been part of that. But at some point, I mean, like when we announced the winners, I said I have X amount of people, and actually we were 2 off. We had 2 ballots more than we had people that were had gone through the process of being able to vote in that party election. I said, well, what happened here? Well, the chairman and the secretary had checked in, but not checked in, so they had gotten their ballots. So we cleared that up right away and said, now we balance. And so I think that's, I can say that 100 times. Our judges hear it from us 100 times. You have to balance. And I think that's a key.
Thank you. Senator Dockstader?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any of the clerks at the table, first of all, appreciate all of this demonstration today. Took a lot of work to get everything in here and get it set up and go through it. Thank you. Is there some type of scenario where a person cast their vote and somewhere it was determined later that they weren't eligible to vote, felon or something in that situation? How do you back out of that and pull that vote back out of the system?
Who wants to do that? Clerk Murphy?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Dockstader, this actually happened in my first election before we started using the e-poll books through the Secretary of State's office, where we had 3 felons vote. When we brought the information back, we didn't know that at the time. So their votes counted. When we ran them through the system and found out they were felons, those votes are counted. We don't know exactly whose ballots those were. I had the case of my county attorney. We investigated. I turned it over to the sheriff. The sheriff investigated, and our county attorney did prosecute those cases. But I'm fortunate now that I have the real-time information, so we catch those up front before they vote.
Would it be fair to say, in that situation where there were 3 votes that were irregular votes, should not have been cast, but in your plethora of elections, if there was a race that was within 3 votes, would that require a rerun of that part of the election? How would you handle that?
Mr. Chairman, so you're going to find out about that after you've had your canvass, is the bad part of that. But anybody, if it's within the time frame, I mean, that somebody could challenge, they could challenge the election results.
Before the canvassing board. So if it happened before the canvassing board.
If we knew about it beforehand, we could bring that to the canvassing board
And
for
they
their
could
decision.
order the election to be rerun in that part.
They could, yes.
So that is a remedy. If it's timely. Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My comment is about the election that did take place at the Wyoming GOP. And something that another representative had stated is that, you know, they had X amount of members voting and there was some under voting. A winner was declared and then they found votes. The votes weren't found. They were in an envelope and then a revote was taken. And just something that Clerk Freeze, I had heard her state this before, is that it is our right to undervote. You don't have to vote for somebody. So just because there's 5 people voting doesn't mean you're going to get 5 votes. You might get 3, but it would never be acceptable, of course, if there was 7 votes. So just wanted to bring that up, that it's our right to undervote, but that's back to the Wyoming GOP. That is not what happened. Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. What else you got? I think you did great.
Mr. Chairman, we would just encourage that if anybody has further questions as a result of your, the remainder of your meeting, please document those. We'll pick up forms around lunchtime, I think, and we will respond in writing to every one of those. And we just appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you. And thank you very much. We'll now hear from the Secretary of State's office with regards to the elections, and then we'll take public comment on elections after that. So I thought it was an excellent job. I give the clerks a hand. I was hoping we could Secretary of State and take it. Yeah. If it's okay, we'll take a break after the Secretary of State's office speak, and we'll make that a short break and go on. I don't know if you want to take your machines now. We're going to have people talk. Okay, thank you. Mr. Secretary and Mr. Rubino.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming.
Well, I think Mr. Rubino is going to go ahead and put the presentation on the screen. While he's doing that, a couple of things I want to clarify, Mr. Chairman. You only want me to speak to the 8:45 a.m.
election stuff
agenda item. Well, there's 2 election times. There's 11 a.m. when I speak to all the bills.
Yeah, let's just blend them all together. Just go right ahead.
Okay, well, that's going to take a while because we were given.
We might have to take a break in the middle. Why don't you let us know?
Very well. I'll go ahead and let Mr. Rubino kind of place that on the screen.
How was your drive?
That was pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Got a tour of the Honor Farm yesterday.
Nice.
And did a couple other things in relation to our work with this work in the state yesterday.
Did you see the horse program? That's a favorite.
Yeah, they're having an adoption program on Saturday, so
Yeah.
for this weekend.
That might explain the high standing of horses in the vote for best favorite pet.
Well, I guess I'll start out with, as we begin the presentation, we have two different presentations. One is in respect to the 8:45 a.m. agenda item, and then we have another presentation with respect to the 11 a.m. agenda item. As Secretary of State, our office is tasked with a number of things, and we'll put those on the screen. But I want to highlight a few of them as we are placing the presentation on the screen. One, that the Secretary of State acts as the chief election officer for the state and maintains uniformity in the application and operation of the election laws of Wyoming. And the role of the Secretary of State really goes back to Wyoming being a territory. It precedes even the Wyoming State Constitution, when President Grant appointed a territorial Secretary of State to oversee elections, even when Wyoming was a territory. And it was the territorial Secretary of State who oversaw the election of delegates to the Constitutional Convention in 1889, and then also the ratification plebiscite that occurred after the drafting of the Wyoming State Constitution. So we go back to even territorial days that the Wyoming Secretary of State acts as the chief election officer for the state and maintains that uniformity. And we have really tried to emphasize the importance of having that uniformity across counties. And that is sometimes where we do engage in a healthy debate with the county clerks, particularly around having uniformity around the Dropbox issue, which is not contemplated in Wyoming state law. We also, in the second bullet point, provide oversight and oversee elections in accordance with Title 22. And I think that is a very important part of the role, and I try to emphasize that with the clerks. That check and balance that we have across government, that is contemplated in Title 22, in the election code, which is that we're a check on the clerks and the clerks are a check on us. And it's very important that we have that oversight. And we saw that play out in the Weston County experience here in the 2024 election, which is when a lot of these procedures that were discussed today went awry. And we had results that were sent to our office in the 10 p.m. hour that just did not make sense. I mean, you had an over 75% undervote in a race with an unopposed candidate. I'm very confident we will never see that in the state of Wyoming. And I started asking questions. We attempted to contact the clerk in the 10 p.m. hour, was not able to get her on the phone. I was very lucky that Weston County is one of the few counties that I have the county sheriff's cell phone. And so I contacted the county sheriff. He was watching the election results, and I thank him for picking up the phone and communicated to him that I felt that we needed to ascertain the whereabouts of the Weston County clerk. And we do emphasize that the importance of the county clerk being available throughout the election evening as we receive the county returns. He agreed that we needed to ascertain the whereabouts of the Weston County clerk. I received a phone call from her, I believe around midnight, and it may have been slightly after, but I can pull up those times. And it's all in our letter to the governor. And we discussed that we had already had a thesis as to what had happened and that the ballot alignment on our ballots was incorrect. Now, one of the duties of the county clerk is to is to draft the ballots, and ballot design is a duty of the county clerks, not a duty of the Secretary of State, although I would like to look at those ballots and help provide some oversight over that and find errors, because there have been some errors in the past, mostly around spelling. And but that ballot was used incorrectly. A former draft of the ballot was used rather than the final draft of the ballot, because the county clerk had, I believe, 4 or 5 different drafts of the ballot design. So mixing up those ballots was what led to the issue. We had a thesis on that first call as to what had happened. The clerk affirmed that she felt the results were correct. In fact, she affirmed that they had a conversation about what we had observed as well, and they concluded that the results were correct. I agreed. I said at that point, let's talk tomorrow morning, and let's regroup tomorrow morning. We then had a call in the morning where we further laid out our thesis on what had occurred. We had the vendor there, ES&S, and the clerk agreed to send over her voter database for examination, but did continue to assert that she felt the results were correct. Then later that day, we received the post-election audit, which was discussed as one of the checks on this system. That post-election audit, of which 75 ballots were audited, stated that there were no observations, meaning no errors that were found. And that was a submittal to our office pursuant to Wyoming state law. We still felt that this needed to be hand examined by the county canvassing board. And while Wyoming state law does not really contemplate hand examinations of the ballot in almost any instance, which is something I feel we need to fix, in this instance, the AG did get behind us that the county canvassing board could conduct a hand examination of the ballots. We then entered into a vibrant colloquy back and forth with the county clerks on whether this would occur or not. The county canvassing board date was moved back 1 day to Friday, and we really insisted that this needed to occur. Around Thursday in the afternoon, I was actually in a SLIB meeting on the Kelly parcel, and we were still discussing this over email. I believe it was about 1 p.m. They agreed to the hand examination procedures and said that the Crook County clerk would come down to Weston County to assist with that. Then the following day, the hand examination of the ballots confirmed what we had feared, that there were errors in Representative Nyman's, Speaker Nyman's race, House District 1, and then also in the county commission race related to the ballot alignment. We then sent an email after that county canvassing board meeting to the clerk, notifying her that she had submitted an audit to our office that said there were no issues when she examined the ballots by eyeball, the CVR, the cast vote record, pursuant to Wyoming state law and the post-election audit laid out in the election code. She then sent back to us, I believe it was over the weekend, a corrected audit. But the question remains, what happened on that first audit? And to me, there are only 2 reasonable explanations, and I've invited the governor, the Weston County clerk, or any other clerk to explain to me what other possibility there is. To me, one possibility is the audit was not conducted at all, which would be a knowingly false filing with our office, in my opinion. The second possibility is the audit was conducted, and the fact that there were errors or observations was not reported to our office, which also is a false filing with our office. So I'm very concerned by that, and we did submit those findings to the governor on his investigation that was initiated by electors from Weston County, asking for him to examine removal of the county clerk pursuant to the procedure in Wyoming state law, which requires a petition from local electors. and have also referred pursuant to Wyoming state law complaints that I've received on that. And that feeds into the third duty of our office, which is to refer election code complaints to the appropriate prosecutorial official. In some instance, it's the attorney general. In some instance, it's the county attorney. In some instances, the DA. In some jurisdictions, obviously, that have that. It just depends. We also prepare election materials, forms, et cetera. That's in the blanket duties of the office. We maintain Wyoming statewide voter registration system. We certify statewide and legislative offices up for election, judicial retention, with overseeing candidate filing for statewide and legislative candidates, ensuring UACAVA compliance, maintaining campaign finance system, and overseeing the Electoral College. Again, this isn't an exclusive list, but we tried to pare it down a little bit. We did want to highlight the uniformity provision in the election code. The Secretary of State is the chief election officer for the state and shall maintain uniformity in the applications and operations of the election laws of Wyoming. Each county clerk is the chief election officer for the county. And that is backed up in the election code. Anytime when the election code wants to not contemplate uniformity, it's expressly called out. So, for example, precinct locations, that's subject to the county clerk's local sort of discretion, and that's particularly called out. Method of poll book, whether to use e-poll books or paper poll books, that's expressly sort of bifurcated from this uniformity provision. Method of tabulation, that is given with the county commission, not the county clerks in the code. And so it's very important to note that the way the code is drafted consciously is to back up that ultimately the interpretation of uniformly applying the code lies with the Secretary of State's office. And I want to note that the Dropbox issue is not one of the 7 or 8 exceptions that is laid out in the code. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. And this further lays out our ability to do directives, which have the force of law to carry out that uniformity to ensure orderly voting, our rulemaking authority, our ability to do forms, so we can have uniformity. That's really one of the key roles of this office, in addition to advocating for policy changes, which we've done very vibrantly. I think back to when I first got involved in the Wyoming State Legislature in 2017, was first elected when I was 27. And I think back to one of the first bills that we had before us when we were at the Jonah building, which was to move towards an all mail-in ballot system. And I'm very proud that day, because at that time, the governor was supportive of it. The SOS at the time was supportive of it, that on third reading, we got up there and did an enacting clause amendment and stopped moving towards that all mail-in system in that 2017 session. And at that time, the election integrity issue really was not at the forefront. I mean, the thought was if we didn't stop that in the House, that probably it was going to go through the entire process. So I use that to sort of cap off that it's been a journey to bring these advancements to the election code and a continued sort of culture of improvement. That's what I tell our folks in the office. Every single day, we need at least a 3-yard run up the middle. And that's the way I approach election integrity. It's about consciously improving the code. And I really thank the county clerks for their work, their presentation today. I also think, though, that we need to continue to improve the code. And so let's go ahead and move to the other presentation. This will sort of move us into the 11 a.m. Discussion, which is on legislation, the executive order that President Trump has signed. I will note, as he's getting the new presentation up as well, in 2021, we advanced voter ID, House Bill 75, was proud to be the lead on that bill. It was really one of the big election code improvements that we had in decades in Wyoming. And I think it set off a wave of election integrity improvements. In 23, our first session in this role, we really got behind closing our primary. As you know, Senator Case, I mean, every single year I was there, this was a bill that was brought before the legislature from 2017 and 2022. And I was proud that in 23, we were able to get that done. I view that as an election integrity measure. 24 was a budget session, so.
Oh, Mr. Secretary, I'm just, I'm conscious of the committee. We've been going since 8:30 and do you think it might be appropriate to take a break before you do your second presentation but I'd let you do your introduction. I don't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem, Chairman Case. And I think it's very appropriate. I think we're moving to a different agenda item now. Thank you for allowing me to ask that question on which one we're on. I wanted
Yeah,
to make sure
well,
there's a
they're all
step.
connected.
Yeah, so appreciate it. Yes.
Let's take a break and then we will have public comment on election issues after, so we'll open up for public comments. And so let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 11 and be sure and promptly get back because you can see it's an overwhelming schedule today. Thank you very much. There you go. I need a few more committee members up here. I know these wiry House members aren't used to Senate discipline, but it's okay. There are. I'm really aware of that.
Either suffer the pain of discipline or regret.
It's kind of all rolled into one. All right, let's get a couple more members. Are there any more members back there? Can we get our members? Mr. Schwartz, would you lean out in the hallway and ask the members to come in? And with that, Mr. Secretary, I do thank you for attending and helping us, and really do appreciate it. Let's keep the noise down in the back. We're starting again. Go ahead, Mr. Secretary.
So you got the presentation?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, well, to lay out the 11 o'clock agenda item and how we're approaching our portion of that agenda item, we have prepared a presentation providing an overview of our office's work implementing the bills that passed during the 2025 session. We will also be discussing President Trump's executive order to preserve and protect American elections and our office's work on that. And in line with the interim topic request in the agenda, areas that we can continue work in the election integrity space and looking through the bills that failed in the 25 legislative session that we would hope the committee considers and moves forward with at least a portion of them. I want to preface at the start that I very much appreciate the work of both the House and the Senate committee during the 2025 legislative session, in which we advanced election integrity for the state of Wyoming and began the work on several important bill concepts to further strengthen and improve Title 22, Wyoming's election code. And I want to thank the committee for revisiting this important issue in the interim. So now to roll through our implementation of bills that passed during the 2025 legislative session. First, we have sort of this landmark piece of legislation, House Bill 156, House Enrolled Act number 157, which is proof of voter residency, registration qualifications, which also includes proof of United States citizenship and Wyoming residency to register to vote. It also implements a 30-day durational residency requirement to vote, and I'd like it to be stronger, but 30 days is the strongest that has survived constitutional scrutiny. And so we really needed to get something on the book so somebody couldn't just be here 10 seconds and register to vote in Wyoming. Now, with the passage of this bill, we really became the first state to apply proof of citizenship to all races because we are NVRA exempt. We are one of the 6 states that has that exemption, and in a long line of precedent, other states that have passed this proof of citizenship requirement have not been able to apply it to their federal races. Because we are NVRA exempt, we are able to apply it to all races pursuant to the wording of the statute. And we don't have on the citizenship requirement any sort of carve out, any attestation that allows an individual to get around it. Unfortunately, in my opinion, on the residency piece, there is that in there, and that is contemplated in the rule making that we just brought forward for the residency piece. The citizenship piece is all in the code, the acceptable documents. It's basically the SAVE Act, which is passed at the federal level, which is proof of citizenship for registering to vote in federal law, which passed the U.S. House here about a month ago and has now over in the United States Senate. Now, we continue to work on implementation on the residency piece of the bill. We have now promulgated rules specifying proof of residency. And it's really important, you know, as I think about the registration process, when I entered office, I view it as sort of a 3 checkbox deal. Identity, which was in the SOS rules when I entered office, it was in rule. Proof of residency, which we passed with House Bill 156, and then proof of citizenship, which we also passed in House Bill 156. So we really have become the leader in having this sort of 3 checkbox process for registering to vote in Wyoming, and it's incredible. We also passed House Bill 337. The legislature passed that bill prohibiting foreign funding of ballot measures in accordance with House Enrolled Act 61, which is the Enrolled Act number for House Bill 337. We have been working on changes to WYCFS, our Wyoming campaign finance system, to require political action committees and organizations to be noticed of the statutory prohibition on foreign nationals making donations, contributions, or expenditures to influence a ballot initiative. And again, Representative Weber did a great job being the lead on this bill. Thank you for your work on this. And the thought on this bill is we're closing the loophole that was created decades ago in a ruling from the Federal Election Commission that the prohibition on foreign funding of elections did not apply to ballot initiatives or referenda. It's created a huge hole that is a problem across the country. Michigan has had over $30 million flowing into their state just in the last few years, foreign dollars around statewide ballot measures. So what we did here in Wyoming is we became the 2nd state in the nation and the first in 2025 to pass this ban on the foreign funding of ballot measures. I'm very proud to report that Wyoming really became a leader again with this bill. And just in the last 3 months, I believe we're up to 5 states that have followed our lead and have joined now in passing a prohibition on foreign funding of ballot measures. As the committee will note, with the passage of House Enrolled Act 61, each political action committee or organization supporting or opposing any statewide initiative or referendum that is required to file reports with the Secretary of State under 22-25-107A, Romanet 7, shall file an accompanying certification regarding funding from prohibited sources, and each itemized statement of contributions and expenditures required by 22-25-106B or H. 22-25-116A, Romanet 3 defines a prohibited source as contributions from or expenditures by a foreign national. Political action committees and organizations are advised to consult 22-25-116 for the reporting requirements and prohibitions of funding from prohibited sources. Therefore, our campaign finance system is undergoing changes to require that all contribution and expenditure reports, both those required between 14 days and 7 days prior to an election, as well as ongoing amendments and odd year reports such that PACs and organizations supporting or opposing a statewide initiative or referendum certify that no expenditure was funded, whether directly or indirectly, by a prohibited source, as defined by 22-25-116A, Romanet 3, that the PAC or organization will not knowingly, whether directly or indirectly, receive, solicit, or accept contributions or expenditures from a prohibited source in any manner, and that it will retain records for at least 5 years to enable enforcement of the act. Now, moving to House Enrolled Act 65, House Bill 228, prohibition on private funds for conducting elections. This is a very important bill. This is where Wyoming was catching up a little bit. Wyoming became the 28th state to pass this ban on Zuck bucks. And this is one we've been working on for some time. I'm very excited about the protections it will provide in Wyoming. Now on House Bill 165, House Enrolled Act 71, that is ranked choice voting prohibition. We really got ahead of this really problematic procedure that some in the nation are trying to inculcate in states. And we just flat out banned it, not only for the state and also for municipalities. And it just was really forward-thinking work by the Wyoming State Legislature. Very excited that President Trump actually did a post on X and on Truth Social on the importance of banning ranked choice voting 2 weekends ago. Now, House Enrolled Act 62, House Bill 318. Maintenance of voter lists. This is another very important bill, and we're working very closely with WYDOT and implementing this right now. I was just thrilled that they're here. I know they're here if you have any questions on the implementation of 318, and they've just been a pleasure to work with. one of my priorities when entering the Secretary of State's office was voter list maintenance, voter list hygiene, we often call it. You know, just like we have to brush our teeth twice a day, we got to have voter list hygiene constantly. And so 318 really became the vehicle for us to begin to move the ball and catching up with other states on our voter list maintenance procedures. House Bill 318, which is effective July 1st, is another tool to our tool belt to strengthen voter list maintenance procedures by accomplishing three things. One, codifying an existing statute, our ability to obtain certain records from the Wyoming Department of Transportation to verify eligibility to vote. Two, enabling us to leverage our relationship with WYDOT to obtain new information pertaining to voter registrations, particularly around citizenship, and then also around state-to-state changes. So if somebody requests a license in another state, that's a pretty big indication that somebody has moved. And now we will be able to have that information, which is aggregated by WYDOT with this S2S system that they contract out with this larger department, AMVA, and they have that data. And now pursuant to Wyoming state law, we will have that data. And three, enabling us a new avenue to obtain data that will allow us to analyze and communicate to the clerks if a registered voter in the state of Wyoming should have their registration canceled for having moved to another state. And that's what we just referred to. We're actively working on Wyoming's statewide voter registration system to ensure this is successfully implemented, and that we will continue to work with WYDOT on obtaining the best information to adequately maintain Wyoming's voter registration list, and then also in alignment with the executive order. And we'll talk about the executive order. Huge that they are directing Social Security, the Department of Homeland Security, to work with the states in giving all of their data to the states for voter list maintenance. And this was always a problem where chief election officials like myself, we just couldn't get the data other than the SAVE system. And even that was like pulling teeth. And so we might come back to you in the second meeting with sort of a 318 2.0 or some further things that we would like to codify in statute with regards to voter list maintenance. And then finally, SF 78, Senate Enrolled Act 10, distribution of unsolicited absentee ballot request forms. We're so happy this was signed into law to ensure absentee ballot request forms are only given to those who actually request them, and to prevent election official impersonation tactics we've seen in previous elections. Now, let's go ahead with your indulgence, move into the executive order. Are there any questions there? I think we'll move into part two if not.
Sounds great. Just by way of housekeeping, Mr. Secretary, I'd like to have the opportunity for public comments before noon today. And the reason is some people might have come for just the morning session. So if we have to take a break and get public comments before noon at some point for those people that won't be here in the afternoon, I'd like to be able to do that. But
okay,
take it away.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. We'll be able to come back after lunch, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We've built time in after lunch, another
Thank you.
45 minutes.
Thank you very much. And I absolutely, public comment is such an important part of this process. And so let's start with the President Trump's executive order. Go ahead and pull up the actual executive order. We want to actually walk through it with you. This was signed on March 25th, 2025, about 5 days after the governor, while refusing to sign House Bill 156, allowing that to become law. That was House Enrolled Act 57. And it just was so wonderful to see the things that we're trying to do at the state level. I mean, we do get attacked a lot from the legacy media and a lot of organizations. And just to see that the President of the United States, who achieved 71% of the votes in our great state, trying to do the very same things that we're talking about. And so starting with part one, section 1 of this executive order, it's largely findings. And then in section 2, after the windup, we get into one of the big things in this executive order, which is proof of citizenship for registering to vote on the federal form. Now, because Wyoming is one of the 6 states exempt from the National Voter Registration Act, that goes back to the early 90s, we don't use the federal form. And of course, we've handled proof of citizenship for registering to vote with House Bill 156. But For those states that are subject to the federal form, President Trump directed the Election Assistance Commission to add that proof of citizenship requirement to the federal form. And so it's really in alignment with what we achieved with House Bill 156, and I'm hugely supportive of it, have submitted the comments to the AAC in regards to my support to adding proof of citizenship for registering to vote on the federal form. Section 3 is providing other assistance to states verifying eligibility, and this really gets to a lot of the voter list maintenance data sharing that the President of the United States, President Trump, is directing Social Security Administration, Homeland Security to work with state election officials to get this data so that we can have voter list maintenance and voter list hygiene. And with this administration, it's been great, but with previous administration, it's been a real issue, particularly with Social Security in terms of that data just that Section 3 really gets to the voter list maintenance procedures. Section 4, which is titled Improving the Election Assistance Commission, really gets into the barcode issue. And I'm just so glad that where the administration is on the barcode issue is smack dab where we were at with House Bill 245. And so I'm going to read literally from Section B, Roman I. It says, the Election Assistance Commission shall initiate appropriate action to amend the Voluntary Voting System Guidelines 2.0 and issue other appropriate guidance establishing standards for voting systems to protect election integrity. The amended guidelines and other guidance shall provide that voting systems should not use a ballot in which a vote is contained within a barcode or quick response code in the vote counting process, except where necessary to accommodate individuals with disabilities, and should provide a voter verifiable paper record to prevent fraud or mistake. And so you'll see there in that wording, he really distinguishes, that you can't have a vote within a barcode, which is the way that the express vote is designed, unfortunately, where the barcode is at the top of the ballot. And, I voted in Laramie County. I'm a resident of Laramie County. In state law, I have to be. I'd never experienced voting this way, where it prints out a ballot, and yes, there's the names under it, but then there's like 15 barcodes, and I can't read barcode. I don't think any of us can. And so while there are names there, it's the barcode that is casting the ballot. And again, this executive order contemplates that bifurcation, which was in the House and gross version of House Bill 245, that we're not going to have barcodes for casting the ballot. And I'm proud to report that ES&S, our machine vendor, has told me that they are working on a product that will remove the barcodes and not have a barcode casting a ballot like the express vote does. And I do want to push back a little on the handout that ES&S provided, and then the clerks added to their presentation, where you had a check mark under uses barcodes for tabulation on pen with paper and touchscreen with paper. The usage of the barcode on a pen with paper ballot is very different. It has to do with ballot alignment, and the question itself is actually getting to the Weston County issue that was not done appropriately, whereas on a touchscreen with a paper ballot, at least the way the express vote does it, you have a barcode that is casting the vote. And that is, you look at the wording, they very carefully word it to address that very issue. Now, I also want to highlight the next provision in the executive order, which is very important, because a lot of people have been saying, well, what the EO does is it addresses the Voluntary Voting System Guidelines 2.0, which our machines are currently certified under 1.0, and the first provision is addressing amending 2.0. Well, he gets to that. In Romanet II, he says, within 180 days of the date of this order, the Election Assistance Commission shall take appropriate action to review and, if appropriate, recertify voting systems under the new standards established under subsection BI of this section, and to rescind all previous certifications of voting equipment based on prior standards. So that means that he's wanting the EAC to look at rolling everybody certified under 1.0 into 2.0. So I think it's very important to note that. So let's move on to the next section now. Section 5, prosecuting election crimes. This gets to just really requesting the AG to prosecute crimes that are identified, illegal votes that are identified pursuant to the more vigorous voterless maintenance procedures that are in Section 3 of the executive order. Section 6, improving security of voting systems. Subsection A, preventing non-citizens from accessing any of the voting equipment, which validates a lot of what, during the primary, actually it was during the general, there was a foreign group that wanted to observe and go into the rooms where the machines are locked up, and we said, no, we're not going to do that. And it's not pursuant to Wyoming state law, and the clerks, we worked with them on that, and I think the CO really shows that this is a priority of the administration as well. And then B requires a report from the Secretary of Homeland Security regarding the security of the machines. We're awaiting that report in addition to the report from DNI and from Secretary Gabbard. Of course, during a cabinet meeting, she said that in her investigation, she'd identified some issues, vulnerabilities with the machines, and said more was to come on that. Section 7, compliance with federal law setting the national election day. Believe it or not, there are 17 states. It is approaching half the states in our nation that allow ballots to come in after the polls close on election day, which is very disturbing. I'm proud to report that Wyoming is not in those 17 states, so I think we've got this one largely handled. As long as there have been attempts to change that in the opposite direction. Obviously, we're opposed to those attempts to move in that direction, and very proud that the president also wants to say that polls closing is the end, and that's all ballots need to be received by then. And we're good there with the way Wyoming state law reads on Section 7. Section 8, preventing foreign interference and unlawful use of federal funds. This is really getting to the foreign funding issue and the fact that this loophole that the Federal Election Commission created. He's asking the Attorney General to really look at these cases and prosecute them. And it really further shows that the work we did on 337 on closing this loophole in state law, it's in alignment with this executive order that came out 2 weeks later. Section 9 is further rescinding Executive Order 14019. That was an executive order that Biden put in place, basically turning federal agencies into voter registration mills. We signed on to an amicus brief opposing that executive order when there was a lawsuit on it, and took a lot of heat on that. But it's the right thing to do to oppose that, because it was just wrong, in my opinion, and glad that it was rescinded now by President Trump. Section 10 and Section 11 are basically severability and sort of legalese, but that's going through the executive order. So that's part 2 of our presentation. Are there any questions?
Anybody? Questions for the Secretary?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Yen, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yeah, I have a couple questions. One, maybe just one we just covered. What is a voter registration mill? I think some elucidation on that would be helpful.
Thank you, Representative Yen.
Well, Mr. Chairman, what President Biden was attempting to do with Executive Order 14019 was to have federal agencies basically give out, distribute, be repositories for voter registration forms. And it was really inconsistent with our state law and inconsistent with the history of our nation, and really glad that President Trump rescinded Executive Order 14019.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on this one.
Go ahead.
I'm confused on why it's bad for federal offices to hand out voter registration forms. Don't we want people to register to vote?
Mr. Secretary?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very important to note, Representative Yin, that we have an exemption from the National Voter Registration Act that dates back to the early 1990s. And so that executive order is really inconsistent with our exemption from the National Voter Registration Act. It's really inconsistent with that. And voter registration has really historically been a state-based deal. You need to look at the Constitution and the division of powers in regards to elections. And that executive order is really inconsistent. The Biden executive order is really inconsistent with that tradition.
Mr. Chairman, one more question.
The one that was signed here a month ago is very consistent with our constitutional divisions.
Okay, we'll give Representative Yin one more follow-up, and then we're going to go to Mr. Co-Chairman. So Representative Yin?
So, Mr. Chairman, back on the first presentation, the Secretary talked about all of the bills that were passed, about especially foreign interfering in our elections. So I guess my question to the Secretary, is there actions that we can take to improve reporting so we know whether or not a foreign entity is interfering? Because right now, I mean, I think we've seen in previous elections that we don't actually know where most of our campaign funds are coming in from entities that actually present campaign materials across the board around the state. So how do we know that foreign entities are actually interfering or not if we don't have the reporting requirements required to understand whether they're even in our elections? So are there ways that we can improve our reporting requirements, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary?
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Secretary?
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And House Enrolled Act 61, House Bill 337 did a great job in doing that. And that were those YCFAS changes that we're building into the system right now. I think I'm going to let Mr. Rubino maybe elucidate even more, because since we had a follow-up question, we love talking about this. I mean, this is our bread and butter. And, you know, I ran through our notes, but Mr. Rubino has really been the lead on these changes that are pursuant to the act that we're very excited about. And we view those as reporting improvements.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Rubino. And I do note the co-chairman has a question when we get to it.
Okay.
Mr. Rubino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Rubino. I'm the Policy Director and General Counsel for the Secretary of State's Office. I didn't introduce myself earlier. I know the Secretary did. Mr. Chairman, through you to Representative Yan. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the big things that is a focus part of both the text of House Bill 337. I don't have my notes in front of me of that was House Enrolled Act 61, really setting forth, it was a three-part certification or a three-part attestation when a group files their reports, either a political action committee or an organization that has formed with our office that is attempting to influence a statewide ballot initiative or referendum. They are required to certify affirmatively that they have not accepted any contributions, whether directly or indirectly. That's language straight from the statute, although I'm going off of memory, so I might get it a little bit wrong, that they have not accepted any funds from a prohibited source. A prohibited source is defined as a foreign national, and there's a cross-reference to the federal code, similar, Mr. Chairman, to what we did with the combating business fraud in the foreign adversary realm. We do believe, and it's why you're seeing a growing number of states really take this on. I believe it was Ohio in which they actually had lots of issues with this, but they had no mechanism to A, track it, B, prevent it. It's largely seen as a loophole in federal law. Of course, federal law strictly prohibits foreign nationals from directly contributing to candidates. Now, one of the things that's acknowledged by the executive order, President Trump's executive order, and one of the things that that we've been talking about, that the Secretary's been talking about for some time, is that there is a loophole for certain type of political activity that, as a policy, I don't believe anybody really wants foreign nationals from interfering with. And that loophole really was statewide initiatives and referenda. So you could not theoretically, if you were a foreign adversary, say, donate to a political candidate, which is common sense. Everybody acknowledges that that's against federal law, and rightfully so, but you could still influence a statewide ballot measure, or in the case of other states, a statewide constitutional provision. So we actually had reported instances in Ohio where there were foreign nationals that were engaging in spending lots of money, millions of dollars, on changing a state constitution. That's wild stuff. And so that's why, in response, many states, and Wyoming, thanks to Representative Weber, was really ahead of this, but there were a lot of state conversations that we had with our counterparts in other states, and you're seeing that now. Wyoming, as the secretary mentioned, it was number 2 to pass that, but you're seeing a wave of that now. It just depends on when those bills get across the finish line and when other legislatures are having their sessions.
Senator Landon. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Co-Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, on section 4, I realize that ES&S will be working on technology that might change that in 2.0, but you're looking at a time frame where technology, RFP process, testing, which may take some time. Do you foresee, I know Trump has mentioned pen and paper ballots several times. In our case, in a situation where we do have a major county that does implement this, do you see us going to that to have that stopgap measure?
Mr. Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's very important to note a couple things here. One, I do want to add a blanket caveat, which is section 4 says that the EAC will undergo this process on 2.0 and then also potentially 1.0. Now, that being said, we passed House Bill 245 in alignment with this. The way I think it would go is 2026, I think we would have a pen to paper ballot default. And the same carve out that the executive order lays out, which is individuals with disabilities, will still be able to use the touchscreen, which every single county does. But it would be that the default method of voting would be a pen to paper ballot, which is the way 22 of 23 counties do it. But in Laramie County, I think in 26, we would probably have a pen to paper ballot. And then in 28, I think the Secretary of State would work with the legislature and Laramie County on whether we would look at this machine product that they have not yet put on the market, but a machine product that would not have barcodes, that would be a touchscreen. But I'm just telling you that ES&S also acknowledges that this is an issue. That's why I mentioned it. I think in terms of the 26 election, having that, I would not want to use those new machines for a couple different reasons. One of them is I think it would conflict with Wyoming state law, or at least our rules, which require machines to have been used in at least 2 elections. And so, yes, in theory, maybe some jurisdictions buy them right away and conduct some bond elections or special elections, but I just think the timing is going to be too close, and we want to see how it goes in 26. So the way I would propose implementing 245, I think the only way to implement it in its language and in alignment with the executive order would be to have Laramie County move to a default pen to paper ballot in the 26 election, and then from there we'd evaluate it.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I wanted to come back to Mr. Urbino here in a moment, just to kind of pursue this foreign influence piece a little bit further if I could. But I do understand that the election has been certified overseas and we do have a pope. So I think all is good. I don't think there's going to be a recount. He's a Chicago guy, so that's kind of interesting. I wanted to share that with the secretary in case you hadn't gotten that text. But So Mr. Rubino, regarding this out of country influence, any concerns about the money that is held by these multi-billionaire PACs out across the country that have huge influence on many of our elections? And is there any way to track where they've got all their money? Because many of these hedge funds and investment strategies do include a lot of international product. Have you heard out across the country any concerns about that? It just seems like you can't dig deep enough to find out if there's influence from the Middle East or from the Pacific Rim, for example. Any concerns on that?
Mr. Secretary, Mr. Rubino? Mr. Rubino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think from a policy perspective, absolutely. And different states, just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a counterpart in another state that's looking at this as well. And different lawmakers in other states, it's one of the things the secretary is often saying that, election integrity is more than just an attestation. I think to start, what we have is affirmative certification and a private right of action that we have for enforcement of House Bill 337. I keep saying House Bill 337, even though it's enrolled. But for that measure that would prohibit foreign funding of ballot measures, of course, the secretary can bring an action through the attorney general for that. And that's one of the reasons that you have a retention of records requirement for all groups that affirmatively certify whether or not they're getting involved. Mr. Chairman, if the committee remembers from the 2023 session, we had a slight change from your bill that was Senate File 40, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that requires federal PACs to also report their contributions and expenditures with our office, and it increases oversight for both federal political action committees. The Wyoming Election Code defines political action committees. It's silent with respect to whether that means a state PAC or a federal PAC. And so if you're getting involved here and you are in any way influencing a statewide ballot measure or initiative, you'll have to affirmatively certify that, along with retention of your records for at least 5 years and the ability for the state of Wyoming to further investigate that through the Attorney General's office. What that looks like, I think states are still ferreting that out and exploring that. And I think that's a conversation to increase the oversight with that. I mean, you look at, of course, IRS Form 990s for different groups. You can understand the grant making that they have. There's that way as well, but it's somewhat different, the advocacy work versus actually contributing to a political action committee or an organization that's organized for independent expenditures for a statewide ballot measure. That's slightly different, and that would be, I think, a different expansion, but both of those are really valid policy questions.
Fair enough. I'm good.
Chairman, I did want
Go
to
ahead.
add one more thing.
Mr. Secretary.
I know we're going to move into public comment. I just wanted to note this on the EO. There was an injunction only on sections 2A and 2D on the executive order. And so I know some might say, well, it's totally, it's only some sections of it. It's 2A
Okay.
and 2D of
Gotcha.
the executive order.
Thank you. And if there are no questions at this time, we'll have the opportunity for more questions, you guys. But I think it's important. We're kind of rolled public comment in from the first election machine clerk presentation with public comment to the meeting at this point in time. And so I'd like to try to get some of that public comment.
Could I do one more?
Oh, you can have one more thing.
This is going to take 15 seconds.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to thank the leads. I know it's a lot of work. I know I did some of them, some I didn't. I want to thank Representative Bear on 156, Representative Weber on 337, Chairman Knapp on 228, Representative Webb on House Bill 165, Representative Lucas on 318, and Senator Hutchings on Senate File 78. I want to make sure to thank the sponsors. So.
Very well done. Thank you very much. Let's just set aside for a while from the office and let's take public comment. Just to help me a little bit, who all intends to offer public comment on the election issues? Just raise your hand. I'm not calling on you right now. Not as many as I thought. So that 2 online. Let's do the room first. Who would like to offer public comment at this time? And what I'd like is We've got 4 chairs there, so if people would just come forward and take one of the chairs. And we don't bite. It's going to be painless. Come on. Be brave. Yes, ma'am. This is a brave person right here. And we just need you to say your name and if you're representing anybody. And look at that microphone. There's a button on the bottom. And if you push it, you
It
get a green
turns
light.
green.
And you're live.
Okay, can you hear me?
Certainly can.
Okay. Hi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for taking public comments on this very important topic, our sacred right to vote in our democracy. I'm Phyllis Roseberry. My husband and I and our family, we've lived on a small ranch in Washakie County, the Gooseberry Creek outside of Worland for 40 years, recently moved to Lander. I was a poll worker, election judge for 10 years in Washakie County. I had the pleasure working with our clerk, Mary Gray Strock. She retired, now Lily Rackness. And I have participated and observed our elections, and all I can say is I bow down to our county clerks. I'm here to support them. They do an outstanding professional job, run efficient and secure elections. So I have some concerns. One, from what I've read, and I've tried to read a lot, there's been 4 cases of voter fraud in the last 20 years. And those were found by our county clerks, reported by the Conservative Heritage Foundation. Yet we've had 45 bills introduced in the last session, mainly, in my view, to either restrict or even disenfranchise eligible valid voters. So to me, our energy is in the wrong place. I think we don't have fraud here. We have secure elections. Ed Buchanan, our previous Secretary of State, said that over and over again. So to me, our biggest problem, I mean, we do have a problem, and that is that our people are not turning out to vote. 27% of eligible voters in Wyoming voted in the primary this last year. That is not good. Voter apathy, or I don't know what it is, they can't make it to the polls. We live in a rural area. Drop boxes were available before COVID, so that helps people who live out in the middle of nowhere. So to me, the legislature's time and energy should be spent on enfranchising and helping our eligible voters to vote. That's the problem. We need people to turn out to vote. 27% is not good. So please spend your energy on helping to get our citizens facilitate the ease of providing a place for them to vote. I think we're secure. We just need to work on helping our citizens vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Roseberry. There might be questions. Any committee questions? Thank you, Ms. Roseberry. I think you got off scot-free, but appreciate your message. Thank you. Who's next? Go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Marissa Carpio. I'm with the Equality State Policy Center. I'm joined by the chair, Linda Barton of the League of Women Voters. We were also joined earlier today by over 30 passionate individuals who trust our process, we're open to learning from the county clerks, the elected officials, and the Secretary of State's office, and care deeply about voter access. This past session, 45 election bills were filed, but only 1 bill worked on voter access for working Wyomingites. These numbers matter to us. These numbers matter to the people who showed up in this room, and although dwindling, there are quite a few people still here. So I just wanted to take the time to thank the committee for looking at these issues, for taking the time to thank the county clerks for presenting and having this chat, and the Secretary of State for giving an overview of the bills. And then I will turn it over to Linda to see if she has anything to add.
Any questions for Ms. Carpio? We're good. Thank you. Ms. Barton, welcome.
Good afternoon, legislators, and my name is Linda Barton. I am the chair of the League of Women Voters of Fremont County and recently elected the state chair a state president of the League of Women Voters of Wyoming.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah. The League of
Were
Women
there any
Voters,
problems with that election? Were there any irregularities, any lost ballots?
well, to be honest with you, it was uncontested.
So many
So
are.
many people wanted that job.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
The League of Women Voters is focused on voter education, voter services, and access to voting. That's what we do. And we are concerned about the low voter turnout in the primary, and the general election wasn't much better at 59%. We are losing the voting public between 18 and 35 who are not voting at all. And I think it's our obligation to find out what is going on, why they're not voting. One other thing I'd like to say is it's deeply disturbing that a third of the seats that are up for election or reelection are unopposed. This makes it challenging for the public to actually be interested in voting. So while that is not our job to encourage candidates to run, I think it is something that the state should be deeply concerned about and interested in. Again, our focus is on accessibility, on helping voters get to the polls, and to support in any way possible their ability to register and then to go ahead and vote. And I appreciate the county clerks so much. I've known Clerk Freeze for many years, and she's done a terrific job, as her team has. And all the county clerks really try hard. So I applaud their efforts. I think the system in place works, and I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. Any questions? Thank you. To you, ma'am. Welcome.
Mr.
You can
Chair,
pull that thing over if it's pointing more at you. There you go.
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Sue Morellis. I'm from Weston County. I'm actually Weston County Constitutional District Senator, if you will. And I was wondering if this committee would be addressing Senate File 174. It was in Senate Enrolled Act 73. It's on constitutional apportionment. This is an issue that also addresses election and voter integrity, because as we are apportioned now, we have voting districts that are overseen by multiple county clerks. And so this is an issue that I'm passionate about, people in Weston County are passionate about, and it also affects voter integrity.
So, Ms. Willis, I neglected it in the opening remarks this morning to kind of address the plan for, indeed, this committee has been assigned the responsibility of implementing the bill that it's at 179? Is that right?
174 was the Senate file, and it was Senate Enrolled Act 73.
Yeah, 174, which was Senator Driscoll's bill called constitutional apportionment. We requested from the Management Council extra budget to address the bill, and we have been granted the ability to create they insisted that we create a subcommittee to address this issue. And maybe by way of background for the people that are listening in, the Wyoming Constitution has a requirement that there be at least one senator and one representative from every single county. And it's a legacy of statehood and even territorial government. That was set aside by the courts who, in the case of, the first name is escaping me, but it's V. Carpin. It was the first redistricting case that occurred and was finished out in about 1991. And the first election under the new arrangement was 1992, where the court directed that the legislature may set aside that requirement of the one representative and one senator for counties in order to have legislative districts that are equal in population size. And that was in response to developing federal law and really the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution about your votes, all votes being equal. So this has created a disconnect between what the Wyoming Constitution says and what our practice is to apportion the legislature. Of course, we were told by the court we could ignore the Constitution on this issue. But this has been a recurring theme of folks that feel that we should be doing it a different way and perhaps give more respect to the Wyoming Constitution in that practice. So in order to address it, we asked Management Council for permission to create a subcommittee to hold hearings. And Management Council agreed that we can establish a subcommittee, and Mr. Co-Chairman, it could be either 4 or 6 members. We have to think about that. And they can hold up to 3 meetings. Was that what it was? It's very specific, up to 3 meetings around the state where this subcommittee would travel and hold hearings with LSO staff on this very issue and what the potential resolutions are. And so that's definitely the plan we want to follow. I meant to announce that this morning so that folks sitting here and online who are members of the committees can maybe think about whether you'd like to be part of that process, be part of that subcommittee process. The thinking would be that the subcommittee would do their work. They would establish their findings and conclusions and come back to our last meeting, which I think is in November. It's not just the subcommittee that would go out in the field. It would also be senior LSO and attorneys to kind of talk about the state of the law. So thank you very much, Mr. Wallace. I should have done that earlier. We actually take this very serious. That bill was passed and we're going to address it. And that's how our thinking is. Whether it's 4 or 6 members, I don't know. 4 seems a little more workable, maybe 2 from each house, but it could be 6. And we welcome legislators and others that are interested to tag along, although you wouldn't be officially part of the subcommittee. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. Will you put that information out?
We will.
Okay.
And we'll notice those public hearings and when we wrap up tomorrow, this is one of the things we have to do is to try to appoint that subcommittee if we can, and maybe think about a tentative schedule, maybe not the exact dates, but it has to fit to get back and be finished up before the last meeting of this committee.
Okay. All right. Thank
Appreciate
you.
your comments and we look forward to seeing you on the road.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kaufman, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, representatives, and Senator, thank you for being here. I had some comments. I wanted to thank the clerks. I know that took a lot of effort on their part to do the demonstration. And I also wanted to comment exclusively on the executive order, and my hat's off to Secretary of State, who gave a very good, thorough explanation of the executive order. One of the things that I want to expand a little bit on is talking with some cybersecurity experts. They've been in contact with EAC, and as of right now, ES&S has not put in any type of a system to be compatible yet. So what happens with that timeframes is only a guesstimate, but when they actually put that system in, they have to go through a series of tests. Anywhere in previous times on other systems, it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months to have that happen. Then it has to go through Pro V&V to do the test labs to make sure that it's efficient, and then they duplicate the machines to sell to the system. They'll sell the systems elsewhere. So we are not talking about in next week timeframe. We are talking about a long period of time before this is done. The thing that we need to understand, I know we're talking about doing elections on paper to pen, we're missing the point that even though we would run them through the DS200s, there's still access and vulnerabilities in the DS200s. So if we're going to be moving to a new system, I would suggest we move to the new system of hand counting. And here's the reason why. I've heard a lot of complaints before, oh, hand counting costs way much. We can't do that financial. Yet all of a sudden we have to have new systems now, and nobody is complaining about the excessive amount of the amount it's going to be for the systems. The systems are running, probably each system would be anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000, depending on what amenities, like if you want a plug-in cord or a box underneath a ballot box, so on and so forth. Those are not in granite yet. Those are just guesstimates. So we're talking about a huge expense. I would not expect that our DS200s right now would be able to be used right now, because their system and their components inside them are from 2018, 2019. And they are mostly foreign components. And with this executive order, they're stating they don't want foreign components. And one of the main reasons why we don't want foreign components is because they have proprietary information that is guarded by the contract that we have with ES&S. So I believe Trump's objective is to have everything done within the United States and America so that we can have our own systems put together. So that is a really good thing. Couple other things with the hand counting. We went this last year, we were in 19 counties with 23 counties represented. We have well over 2,000 people trained and solid in hand counting, and we are willing to step up with the state and with the county clerks to help them in this situation. So, and I am more than willing, along with the rest of the team from this wonderful team across the state, to step up and train some more. And I stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Questions for Ms. Kaufman? Thank you. Representative. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, Chairman and committee members. I'm Representative Brady out of House District 60. Thank you for considering this important topic of election integrity. Today's clerk's presentation reminds me of a science teacher decades ago who taught the theory of evolution in public school. This teacher, though, taught the theory as fact. Asked why he did so, he stated that if it isn't challenged and is taught long enough, it becomes fact. Although many over the years have in fact challenged this concept of presenting theory as fact, using my example of the theory of evolution, it remains mainstream and believed in the minds of many. So it is with the accuracy of using electronic voting machines. You were given a demonstration this morning using an actual voting machine and told that it is an accurate way to count each and every vote. Continuing this fallacy that county clerks can properly test logic and accuracy in the machines for secure election, the theory continues by attempting to convince the public that electronic voting is security is fact. It is not. There have been several issues within our own state, such as we mentioned earlier, Weston County, which proved electronic machines are not reliable. Would any of you care to guess how many county clerks passed the logic and accuracy testing in their respective county for 2024? All 23 counties failed testing prior to the 2024 primary and general vote. As mentioned earlier on behalf of clerks statewide regarding the USB sticks, my county clerk in fact stated that ours were purchased in California and used in our elections. They were not purchased from ES&S directly. Why? Due to cost. That alone is another violation of the ES&S contract. I have participated in clerk demonstrations in my own county, such as the one performed for you this morning. I've also participated in several mock and hand counting sessions with 100% accuracy. I encourage the committee to protect each and every sacred vote and return to hand counting only. If you just can't bring yourself to ridding our state of electronic voting machines, I would ask that you also ensure hand counting ballots to verify that all votes cast on the electronic voting machines were accurate. Hand count is accurate and extremely efficient. And Chairman Case, if I may, I agree with you that you're correct that paper ballots can and should be used to verify if there are any questions regarding electronic voting machines. But unless an issue is obvious as Weston County, we would never question the machine results. In conclusion, we need to bring the trust of the citizens back to the state. We as legislators are the gatekeepers of the Constitution. Article 6, Section 13, purity of elections is to be provided for. The legislature shall pass laws to secure the purity of elections and guard against abuses of the elective franchise. We must be able to hand count and/or audit the ballots to verify if the votes are being counted accurately. I'm free for any questions?
Thank you very much, Representative Brady. Questions? Any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you for your time.
Let's go online and catch those two, if that's all right. Cap? Oh, Mr. Cap, am I saying that right?
It's Kep.
Kep. Did I
There
do
you
it?
go. You got it. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman,
Go ahead,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman
Thank
and
you.
board, thank you for the time to speak today. And I appreciate the demonstration that occurred earlier today. And I want to point out something that's key in that demonstration. There's two major gaps in what the county clerk showed you. First off, if you recognize they take the USB stick out of that voting machine and then they put it into a counting machine, and that's where they combine all those counts together. That machine that they put that USB stick in, the last time the antivirus was installed on that machine was 4 years ago. It's a 4-year-old antivirus system. The software is also out of date on that computer. So the computer that's actually counting all the votes and preparing that PDF to send to the Secretary of State is out of date. They also showed you the audit afterwards, and you got to see images of the ballots and count that. Those images are on an insecure computer. I've mentioned before that I'm a CEO of a tech company. One of the things that I'm most fearful about as we look ahead over the next year to 2 years is advancements in AI. If anybody's played with ChatGPT or some of these other tools, you know how powerful those tools are available to us. If our votes are being counted and summarized on a computer that's insecure, AI, if it's used by a nefarious actor, could easily hack that system and update those votes. Which brings us to the secondary problem in the demonstration that you saw today. There is no process currently in state law to grab the ballot out of that box and physically verify it. The Secretary of State commented how he was able to do that in Weston County, and we saw the outcome of that, massive irregularities. We don't currently have anything else to do that and test in other counties. So when it's stated that our elections are secure and everything matches up, you can't really make that statement because you don't have any validation behind it. And the only time it's ever been done where the ballots have been taken out and recounted, we had massive irregularities. So keep that in mind as you're going over this. I also want to make a note about you have two clerks that currently just spoke to you, Carbon County and Fremont County, who are currently in violation of Wyoming statute, specifically public records requests. I've got public records requests into them that have been referred to the ombudsman, and they have not replied to those at all. So it's interesting that they're providing you feedback on how the law applies when they're actively defying statute as it exists in Wyoming. And then I also have a last comment in regard to the commentary about the Republican Party vote that happened this last weekend. I was the one that brought up the irregularities in both cases. The first one on the miscount, the 70 votes versus the 74, that process worked. I walked up to the chairman and said, hey, we only counted 70 votes. Something's off. They went and they found those 4 votes, and then we did a revote for it. In the vice president race, there was some commentary of actually going outside of our rules. I brought up a motion or a point of order, said we're not following the rules, and we followed the rules. So I appreciate that that was brought up, but I can tell you that we followed the process and the elections were properly handled at the Republican state meeting. So I appreciate your time, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Let's see if you have any questions for the gentleman. Any questions? Thank you. We appreciate your testimony. Okay, we got one more online. Let's do that. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you had said to. Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Go ahead. Hello, Ms. Butler. Welcome to the Corporations Committee.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. Change is hard, and I would like to build upon a couple of the last speakers. Especially when you've invested so much trust and effort into using something and pushing it. So much effort and care have been placed today and over the years in the support of our electronic machine system. And I really do appreciate, because I believe that the clerks have done this in an effort to make what they've been handed as secure as possible. But at some point, we need to face reality. I always say that you can only, you never win when you deny reality. And the reality is that these machines can't be trusted. Now, you ask any, even kids, and say, well, what's been hacked? Everything gets hacked. The government, the military, everything gets hacked. But it's not just that. I mean, look at the facts even in our own state. There have been glitches. There have been switches in races. There have been races that have been miscounted. Even in our extremely well-run public testing, for the most part, the public testing went really well in Platte County. There were still some issues with compliance with testing, appropriately as far as the numbers on each race and all. But, I mean, I believe Clerk Irvin did his very best and do an upstanding job. However, there were glitches, and those glitches were resolved by hand counting. There were 3 races that we hand counted to figure out and confirm the glitches in. But currently, our statutes don't allow us to get our hands on the ballot. So that's something I do request that you please look into further. Also, just in general compliance and staying up with this executive order, our last update that was sent from ES&S was in June of 2022. 2 years before our last election is the last time ES&S sent an update for our DS200. And so all of us who have everything updated almost on a daily basis for our phones and our laptops and everything else are trusting our votes counted on something that hasn't been updated. I mean, granted, that was sent out in 2022. We had it installed in May of 2023 here in Wyoming. It took out, till the next year for us to even get it installed in Wyoming. So we need to stay ahead of this. There's no way to stay ahead of it now. We need to catch up. We've been caught with our pants down. We need to get ahead of the vulnerabilities, and those are going to be unveiled with a backhoe now that the federal government has been authorized and encouraged to get in and figure out these election security issues. So we need to take it up, and because I mean, I know it feels very nice to have the clerks demonstrate a public test, an audit, a canvas board and here to the legislature. But anyone who knows anything about hacking programming, they're not going to hack a public test or an audit or a canvas or a legislative demonstration. They're going to set something to show up, pop up, take care of business, and disappear and be erased. And if you want to talk disenfranchisement, and this is my biggest concern. We're all concerned about disenfranchisement. With hand counting, you're going to get human error, of course. But that means nothing compared to one human programmer. Maybe he's paid a big bunch of money. Maybe his family's been threatened. Maybe he would just love to mess with us. One human programmer can change a whole election and disenfranchise every single one of us. So I'm asking you to please catch up with this if you're going to educate yourselves about where we need to go, not where we've been, because the whole demonstration is where we've been. Those machines are going to have to be up. They're running on Windows 10. They're all going to have to be updated. The current systems, from what I've got responses from anyone I've talked with about the machines, those systems are going to have to be, we're going to have to buy new ones because we can't update those past Windows 10, what we've got. This is going to be millions and millions of dollars that's going to be spent to update to something else, who knows when, that's not going to be any less vulnerable. And then new training, millions and millions of dollars, and we're all equally all as vulnerable. So I do ask you to please think forward, think proactive in ways we should have for the past 10 years. I do appreciate that a lot of you have been open to that discussion, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. We have questions. We have Representative Yen has a question. Let's start there.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ms. Butler, thanks for joining us. So I am a software developer. I do write code, and I have thought about what are ways that a bad actor could intrude in our systems. So one, the software update process itself is a risky process. I actually wouldn't advocate that we update our software unless we had a good reason to. Just because it's old doesn't mean it doesn't work. And so I guess my question to you is, why should we update the software if it doesn't have any access to the internet? And then the second question is, what would be the process where a software developer, I want to outline for everybody actually, what is the scenario? So we keep saying one programmer or ChatGPT or whatever can just change a machine and then automatically do it. So I need to understand step by step how that would be possible. If the election official tests the machine, goes through a test election, verifies that the ballots that they put in is the count that they cut out, and then put seals in every single place where the machine could be intruded on, how would someone change the machine after the fact? Or are you saying that they, I need to understand what's the scenario where a software developer could change the machine, then it's tested, it's sealed, it goes in the election, it's verified that all the seals are in place. When they take the count out, how does someone hack into the machine?
Ms. Butler, if you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Yen. I do appreciate those questions. Those are questions that I'm sure a lot of folks have. One of the main things that you should be hearing about is that, and why we want machines made in the U.S. is because of proprietary rights. When even of the smallest component of our machines are made, the creator or the governing country, such as China, maintains proprietary rights behind that. And if you've ever experienced being locked out of something and then calling the helpline, you'll know there's always a back door. There is always a back door. And those creators, those manufacturers in hostile countries to our republic, they have proprietary rights through our machines. Furthermore, they forbid us to look in those machines. So we cannot take apart the machine and find out if they're one of those tiny little Wi-Fi transmitters or whatever in there. And there has been situation after situation where these kinds of things are proven through a variety of methods that it is possible and it has happened. and you don't find them, because we can't pull those paper ballots out and reconcile, and because the voter can't look at something and say, my vote counted right, not just my ballot counted, like it counted that I submitted a ballot. Because the voter can't reconcile it, and because these audits can't reconcile paper to the report, you don't know what happened. You can hope. But that's a huge trust issue, and it will come down also to a financial issue. And I can guarantee you, having experienced more than one type of hand counting method, and having prepared with others in my county a continuity of government whole package for Platte County in case something happened in our last election. We prepared everything for that election. It was just kind of a let's see what this would take, and then if something hits the fan, then we would be able to step up to the authorities that be and say, hey, we can hand count this if you want us to. But it relies upon you legislators taking action to make it possible for us to truly be up. What good is it to do paper ballots if we're never allowed to reconcile them, unless it takes an AG saying it's okay? So that is the why. I hope that answered your question, Mr. Yen.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Representative Yan, we're trying to get to lunch, but.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I think that's fine. I understand her concern. Her concern is that there could be a backdoor inserted in a small component. Got it. I think the issue about making sure that the count matches what's on the ballot is important, but I don't think we need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Yan. Questions from Ms. Butler from the rest of the committee? Thank you, Ms. Butler. We appreciate you and your time today. Just by way of looking out here, I think we'll take Mr. Correnti. He's maneuvered himself into the hot mic. You can see that. He's very good at that. And we'll take his public comment, and then we will adjourn for lunch, and we'll come back at 1:30, and we will continue with the Secretary of State. There will be additional opportunity for public comment. I hope you, I will frown on people that want 2 bites of the apple if we open it up again. But I do appreciate any new information. Mr. Correnti, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joey Correnti. I'm the Executive Director of Rural Wyoming Matters and a member of the Carbon County Canvassing Board. Sorry for the late arrival. I was inspired by other testimony. I just want to point out to the committee that you heard testimony earlier that the Carbon County Clerk is somehow in violation of state statute. In preparation for this meeting, the rest of the interim potential legislation coming up, I've spent a lot of time trying to talk to my county clerk, but she's always been too busy personally preparing these FOIA requests, not staffing it out. And so I've been rejected by my own clerk because of onerous requests from across the state. And also, I didn't hear a citation of any specific complaint or case going on against my county clerk being in violation of statute. And I have confirmed with my county sheriff that right now there is no complaint or investigation. So the information that was provided to the committee, do with what you want, but potentially have an expectation or make the request that somebody cite the actual complaint of the crime they're accusing. That might help. And some of that might be an error because I did receive that information from a machine. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Correnti. Any questions for Mr. Correnti? All right, if it's acceptable, let's take a lunch break. We'll come back at 1:30 and we'll continue on. Thank you.